Chapter 3761. Because this goo worm could eat a person's heart and burrow into the heart to control the person's body. As long as that person's body hasn't decayed. The goo worms could control the body and use that person's identity to live. Most importantly, this kind of goo was not easy to discover. Even if ordinary goo masters came, they would not be able to find any traces of the corpse puppet goo. Even if they found out, they wouldn't be able to deal with them. For example, the things inside the goo incense could not suppress the corpse puppet goo at all. Such a sinister and terrifying corpse puppet goo, generally speaking, being able to nurture 10 out of 10,000 goo worms was already considered very successful. But now, Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she scanned the densely packed scene below her. There were at least tens of thousands of corpse puppet goo here. Why are there so many corpse puppet goo? No. Yiqing Luo sat on the green dragon's head as she looked at the pitch black below. These corpse puppet parasites had escaped from the corpse puppet parasite's body, and that means that the corpse puppet parasites were arranged by the Palace of Darkness. If the corpse puppet parasites and 3 nether failed, these corpse puppet parasites would replace them to complete the following mission. So many corpse puppet goo. The surviving profound practitioners of the major forces in the auction would become food for the corpse puppet goo. The goal of the Dark Nether Palace would be achieved. More importantly, at least tens of thousands of corpse puppet goo were released. There was no way to take it back. By the time the corpse puppet goo had devoured all the profound practitioners of the major forces in the auction, it was very likely that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would remove the barrier of the auction. At that time, the corpse puppet goo were moving around everywhere in the land domain. The entire land, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Azure Dragon, is there any way to deal with the corpse puppet parasite? Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she asked. The Azure Dragon spat out a dragon's breath. No. Yiqing Luo looked down and her eyes suddenly froze. She placed Shiju on the Azure Dragon's back and immediately leapt up, diving down from the Azure Dragon's back. Be careful. Her fingertips moved and the glowing flame fan opened up. Strong profound energy turned into a hurricane as it swept downwards. Boom! The dark force hit the ground and created a strong wind. Just in time to block the large group of corpse puppet goo that was charging up. The executive elder was so shocked that he took a step back. Qiao Yinyan and Pei Xing also reacted quickly. They grabbed the executive elder's shoulders and pulled him back. The corpse puppet goo's attack was blocked. However, before the executive elder could heave a sigh of relief, that densely packed stretch of them had already knocked away the strong wind which Yiqing Luo had created earlier, as they swarmed over once again. Ah! There were a few profound practitioners who were too slow in retreating. A corpse puppet goo climbed onto his body. Subsequently, the dense mass of corpse puppet parasites swallowed that profounder. Not even his bones were left. The corpse puppet goo was very fast. They were densely packed and swarmed together, leaving no gaps at all. This was especially true for the profound practitioners. As long as they were touched, the corpse puppet parasites would quickly crawl all over their bodies and devour them in an instant. Even their souls would be devoured. The profound practitioners of the various great powers were stupefied. One by one, they screamed, turned around, and ran. Yiqing Luo landed next to Pei Xing and the others, as she flipped her hand and swept up a hurricane, once again obstructing those corpse puppet parasites which were surging towards them. Chapter 3762. The speed of the cultivators from the major forces could not match up to the zombies. Seeing that Yiqing Luo was safe, they immediately rushed towards the direction of Yiqing Luo and the rest. Countless corpse puppet goo followed closely behind. From all directions, the densely packed corpse puppet goo swarmed towards the group. Don't come over. Don't come over. The executive elder's expression changed when he saw that. More and more zombies started to surround them. The wind created by the few of them could not withstand the invasion of thousands of zombies. No, if this goes on, we will all be devoured. Qiao Yinyan frowned slightly. Pei Xing looked at the green dragon hovering in midair. Aluo, let the green dragon bring you away first, you will only be waiting for death if you stay. This place has been set up by the secluded palace, unless we find a way to break the array, none of us can leave here. After Yiqing Luo finished her sentence, she looked at Pei Xing. Moreover, I will not leave you all in danger and leave alone. Yiqing Luo waved her glower flame fan, a violent burst of profound energy shot out, instantly covering those zombies. A large number of zombies collided and squeezed in the dazzling red light. Yiqing Luo's fingertip moved. She injected another burst of profound energy. Those zombies that were covered were instantly shattered by the profound energy. A large wave of corpse puppet goo exploded into pieces. But dealing with this wave of zombies was of no use at all. There was still an endless stretch of zombies behind. These worms are so disgusting. Kitty Lee's face was filled with unbearable expression, her little claws kept scratching her body. Even her hair was standing on end. Zhou Mo held her in his arms, stroked her little head and comforted her. It's all right, I will protect you. His words were gentle. But the expression on his face was extremely cold. Ah Wu. Zhou Mo stroked Kitty Lee's fur while looking at the expressionless Gue Wu. Do you have any way to deal with this damn thing? Yes. Gue Wu lightly spat out a word. Zhou Mo's eyes lit up and was about to ask what was the solution. But he heard Gue Wu lightly spitting out the next sentence, there's no way here. Zhou Mo understood Gue Wu's meaning. In this place, the auction was trapped by the array. Even if he had a way, he couldn't use it. Stop these corpse puppet goo from approaching first. Reduce the number of deaths. Yiqing Luo also understood their conversation. Before there was no other way. He could only choose to stop it. The more people died, the worse it would be for them. Shrugging his shoulders, Zhou Mo shot a glance at Gue Wu. Both of them exerted their strength at the same time. Their Xian Qi exploded and charged forward. Pei Xing and the others quickly joined the interdiction team. Wave after wave of corpse puppet goo were torn apart. But soon after wave of corpse puppet goo came. This caused everyone's scalps to go numb, and a wave of despair instantly assaulted them. Calm down. If we lose our footing, we will give those bugs a chance. The executive elder shouted at the top of his lungs, do you see Madame D, young Master Qiao and young Master Pei? Do you see those people? Everyone unite. These insects aren't like the monsters from before that can counter our attacks. The profound practitioners of the major forces were originally a little afraid. But as the number of corpse puppet goo increased, the surging also became more and more intense. Qiao Yinyan and the others couldn't take care of everyone. Chapter 3763. Various powerhouses cultivators joined in. This didn't make Yiqing Luo and the rest feel relaxed. The corpse puppet goo swarmed over in an overwhelming manner. It was as if a layer of black carpet had been laid out for the entire auction. Yiqing Luo's trypophobia was about to act up. They couldn't stop to rest. If they were not careful, they would be swallowed by the corpse puppet goo. No one was willing to take their own lives as a joke. All of them gathered their attention to stop the corpse puppet goo. Yiqing Luo's actions had almost become her body's instinct. She pursed her lips tightly as her vision swept across the surroundings. She wanted to find the Wu Gu master behind the scenes who was controlling these corpse puppet goo. But her perceptive ability couldn't sense any other aura in the surroundings at all. If this went on, everyone would either be swallowed by the corpse puppet goo or die of exhaustion of profound energy. After going through one battle after another, all the profound practitioners' minds and bodies were exhausted to the extreme. Now they were fighting with a bunch of worms. Almost everyone had started to feel numb. Thinking of the conversation between Zhou Mo and Gue Wu earlier, Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her profound energy and increased her strength as she struck the incoming corpse puppet Gu flying. Her figure flashed as she appeared in the direction of the ghost martial artist. She just moved, which revealed a gap. The wave of corpse puppet Gu which Yiqing Luo struck had exploded for just a moment. The corpse puppet Gu at the back had already taken the opportunity to attack this gap. Roar! Shiju growled as it pounced down from the green dragon's back, replacing Yiqing Luo's position earlier. Its claw came down. It carried the might of the dragon clan and mirage beast. It turned into a stream of chi waves as it tore those corpse puppet Gu apart. The green dragon let out a low growl as it bent down. The dragon's breath spewed out as it rolled up the might of a sacred beast. Yiqing Luo nodded towards the two battle pets and looked at Gue Wu as she asked, Master Gue Wu, you said there is a way to deal with these corpse puppet Gu, what is it? Settle the Wu Gu Master. Gue Wu replied. Yiqing Luo replied, Wu Gu Master. I didn't sense anyone else's presence in the auction, is the Wu Gu Master here? A big shot like Gue Wu, his perceptive ability was definitely above hers. Not here. Gue Wu replied straightforwardly, causing Yiqing Luo's hope to be extinguished. But, what made Yiqing Luo curious was, the Wu Gu Master was not in the auction. Then, how did these corpse puppet Gu hide in the bodies of the corpse puppets, and why did they only start to move now? And, most importantly, these corpse Gu swarmed in wave after wave. It seemed like there was no order. But from the process of fighting against these corpse puppet Gu and stopping them, Zhang Xian didn't know how to deal with them. These corpse puppet Gu. These corpse puppet Gu were orderly as they carried out their tasks. Without the control of a Wu Gu Master, how did these corpse puppet Gu attack in such an orderly manner? Little Qing Luo, you'd better not think about such a complicated matter. No matter how much you think, you won't be able to get the answer. Zhou Mo also leaned over as his narrow phoenix eyes shot a glance at Yiqing Luo and continued, actually, there are many ways to deal with the corpse puppet Gu, but we're trapped in this array, so no matter how many ways there are, we won't be able to test it out. Yiqing Luo asked, what are the methods you mentioned? Yiqing Luo's words had just landed. Chapter 3764. What happened? The duo's reaction made Yiqing Luo look over in alarm. The ground that was originally covered with corpse puppet Gu rose up like a small hill. It was more like something was about to break out of the ground. The corpse puppet Gu avoided that arched hill because of the changes in the ground. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted abruptly, something is approaching us from the ground. Could it be a new plan of the Palace of Darkness? Not necessarily. Gue Wu indifferently replied, it could also be a helper. Helpers. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but twitched her lips in ridicule. Under such circumstances, would we still have helpers? Was he referring to the Emperor of the Earth Domain? Or Historian of Balance? Or someone from the upper realm? Yiqing Luo's tone was filled with ridicule. The Lingue Marshal General looked at her. You seem to be very hostile towards the forces of the upper realm. It's not hostility. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as a smile surfaced in her eyes. It's just that I'm simply unable to agree with their actions of not taking responsibility for their high positions. He met the Historian of Balance in the Nirvana realm. Yiqing Luo didn't have any good impression of the Balance Historian. Their existence was said to restrict the balance of the major realms. But what really happened, Master? Indeed, they did not see anyone for a long time. Yiqing Luo had some doubts. The person behind the gloomy palace was actually the master of the so-called balance historian and the so-called heavenly Tao, right? Even an invisible person like her could see through the goal of gloomy palace. She didn't believe it. The so-called heavenly axiom and those in power in the upper realm would not notice these little tricks. However, the Nirvana realm was almost destroyed, and no one cared. The Earth domain was also in imminent danger. Still, no one showed any interest. It was ridiculous, right? When Gue Wu heard Yiqing Luo's words, the ridiculing expression on his face became even more obvious. He furrowed his brows. There are a lot of things that can affect everything if you pull one hair. It's not that the people of the upper realm are unwilling to get involved, it's just that things are too complicated. At this point, his voice paused and his brows furrowed even more. He did not continue speaking and continued to organize those corpse puppet goo. Yiqing Luo didn't pursue further. However, there was a question in his heart. Gue Wu had always been a person of few words. Apart from martial arts, there was nothing else that could interest him. Just now, such a person wanted to explain to her about her misunderstanding of the people in the upper realm. Could it be, wasn't Gue Wu also a member of the balance historian? Or, one of the powers in power in the upper realm? Ka-cha! Suddenly, the sound of the ground exploding interrupted Yiqing Luo's thoughts. A crack slowly appeared on the small hill on the ground, and it tore apart towards both sides. Hiss, hiss, the corpse puppet goo that was crawling on the ground suddenly seemed to have lost its target. It began to crawl around randomly. Many corpse puppet goo smelled the blood on the ground and pounced over, devouring the corpses on the ground. At once, all the corpse puppet goo fell into chaos. It was originally a neat, orderly, and densely packed mass. Now, there was no order to it, and it was running all over the place, at this moment. The arched ground began to shake and the mountains began to shake. More and more things surged up from the ground. From the crack, a huge black shadow suddenly scurried out. Following that, everyone saw something long sweeping past their eyes. All the corpse puppet goo surrounding the crack, they disappeared in a split second. Chapter 3765. That's right. It had been swallowed. What was this thing? It even dared to swallow the corpse puppet goo. Yiqing Luo immediately looked over. She saw a huge mouth in front of her. His mouth was wide open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth that looked like sharp blades. Opening its mouth, closing it. As though it could bite through everything in the world. Yiqing Luo's pupils shrank. Strange beast. This thing with only one mouth, wasn't it the one she saw in the Nirvana realm when she participated in the Academy's competition? Strange beast. Similar to a mutated dragon, it could change into something according to the surrounding environment. Strange beast. There was such a thing in the Earth realm. Hey, female hero, we meet again. That huge mouth opened wide towards Yiqing Luo, as he sniggered out. The breath it exhaled was very fishy. His red tongue kept swaying back and forth. Yiqing Luo. Alright, this mutated beast was the same mutated beast that she had met in the Nirvana realm. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. Why are you here? While she was asking, another corpse puppet goo rushed over. Yiqing Luo was about to release her profound energy. The mutated beast swiped its tongue and swept those corpse puppet goo into its stomach. It chewed a few times with a crunching sound. Inside its bloody mouth, black bugs were surging out in a dense manner. Then, the strange beast swallowed the corpse puppet goo. Just like that, it swallowed it. Yiqing Luo, who witnessed this scene, was dumbfounded. Didn't this thing like to eat meat? Now it even ate worms. How hungry was this child? After swallowing the corpse puppet goo, the strange beast's tongue swept its sharp teeth and grinned at Yiqing Luo. female hero, the omnipotent ball is here to save you. Yi-Ching Luo felt that the bloody mouth, after swallowing the corpse puppet goo, became even more smelly. It was so smelly that she wanted to hammer it to shut its mouth. In fact, Yi-Ching Luo really did that. She leaped up and stepped on the strange beast's bald, slippery head. With this one step, Yi-Ching Luo had obviously stepped into its bloody mouth. Why have you come to the Earth domain? What are you doing here? Yi-Ching Luo kicked its head. Answer properly, I don't have time to joke with you. The mutant's round body was pressed against the ground. Its tongue was hanging out of its mouth, swinging around. It's the master who asked me to help you. Let go of me. Release me. If you trample on my cute little head, master will feel sorry for me. Yi-Ching Luo. She was really sorry, she totally couldn't see how this thing was cute. Before you call her cute, can you retract that tongue of yours? Master. Yi-Ching Luo kicked it. Who is the master you're talking about? Apart from being able to transform into anything in the world, there was actually someone who could form a contract with an ugly monster that had no attack power at all. That person had even allowed this ugly creature with no attacking power to come to the Earth domain to help her. The mutant opened its mouth and said, "My master is your good sister, the most beautiful, kind-hearted, and adorable Xiao Yingying." Mo-Yuing. Yi-Ching Luo was surprised. Mo-Yuing actually formed a contract with a mutated beast. But that time in the array designed by the Dark Forces. Chapter 3766. How did Shadow know I'm here? And even specially asked you to come over. Although she believed the strange beast's words, but Yi-Ching Luo still had some doubts. The strange beast rolled one round on the ground and started to chomp on the corpse puppet goo on the ground. That huge mouth seemed to be filled forever. It was making a "gee bang bang" sound as it replied. Yi-Ching Luo, Master said that you would definitely need to do some sneaky things in the Earth boundary and I'm the best tool for that, so he sent me over to help you. As it spoke, its tongue flicked around. The densely packed corpse puppet goo were still crawling around in its mouth. Yi-Ching Luo had goosebumps all over her body. Although this strange beast didn't have much attack power, but its ability to eat worms was still quite strong. Most importantly, after the strange beast finished eating the corpse puppet goo, there was no reaction at all. It seemed like it had been eaten. Those corpse puppet goo had completely disappeared. Moreover, when the corpse puppet goo climbed onto the strange beast's body and tried to swallow it. But, no matter how they climbed onto the strange beast's body, or they would be slippery and fall down, or they couldn't even bite into it. Slippery, round and bulging. The corpse puppet goo couldn't do anything to the strange beast. Especially now, after the strange beast drilled out from the ground. Not sure if it had destroyed the array, or destroyed the connection between the corpse puppet goo and the goo master. These corpse puppet goo were scurrying around without any order at all. This caused the mutant to be extremely happy as it ate. To it. Although these corpse puppet goo ate corpses and had been nurtured until now. But in any case, it was still meat. As long as it was meat, it would be its favorite. Looking at the strange beast eating till its mouth was black. Yi-Ching Luo didn't even want to take another look at it. Shadow sent you over, how did you find me here? And you even know how to dig a hole in the ground. The strange beast shook its tongue and replied, Master said Master asked me to dig a hole in the ground, Shadow. Shadow knew she was trapped in the auction. And specially asked the strange beast to dig a hole in the ground. And linked it to the strange beast. That could eat the corpse puppet goo. Shadow, did she know something? Then, how about her? Yi-Ching Luo asked. Master didn't come here. He just told me to. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips, and after listening to the first half of her sentence, she couldn't be bothered to listen to the second half. She looked in all directions at the insects covering the ground and interrupted its words. You came just in time. There are too many corpse puppet goo here. Since you like to eat them all. The appearance of the strange beast made Yiqing Luo's side much more relaxed. However, it was still somewhat difficult for the other profound practitioners. Especially, the corpse puppet parasites that had lost their order. Although it was easier to deal with them, it was also not easy. But it was still easier than dealing with the waves of orderly attacks from before. However, these corpse puppet goo were crawling all over the place. There was less pressure to deal with it. However, the frequency of attacks was much higher. If he was careless, a corpse puppet goo might crawl into his body. The strange beast heard Yiqing Luo's words. His swinging tongue immediately stopped. It was as if he was frightened. After a long time, it swayed its tongue and said, Master, I knew you wanted to kill me. So he specially asked me to bring a helper. Its words had just ended. Suddenly its body fell. Its bloody mouth was facing the sky. An extremely strange cry came out from its mouth. Chapter 3767. As the cries of the strange beast grew louder, that straight tongue formed the vibrations of the sound waves, twisting and turning. Following that, the ground suddenly shook. The ground was like a ripple, rolling over. One round after another. The ripples were getting faster and faster. Everyone's gaze was focused on that direction. Swoosh, 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 the sound of something breaking through the ground was heard. Immediately following that, in the huge hole in the ground, countless round and slippery mutant beasts crawled out of the hole. They only had a bloody mouth on their surface. These strange beasts were the size of a huge rock. In an instant, they occupied a third of the auction venue. Yiqing Luo estimated that there were at least 50 over. Strange beasts. Hey, ugly monster. Yiqing Luo looked at the complacent strange beast in front of her. The corners of her mouth twitched. You. Where did you get so many strange beasts? Don't ask her how she could see the complacent expression of the strange beast from its mouth. Anyway, she could see it. The strange beast instantly exploded, its tongue flicked, expressing its anger. Master gave me a name. I am called Chio Chio, not ugly monster. Chio Chio. This name was too cute, really not suitable to be used on a strange beast. You need our help now. Treat me better. If you make me unhappy, I will not help you deal with those disgusting bugs. The strange beast snorted arrogantly. Yiqing Luo glanced at it. Looking at its bloody mouth, which was filled with corpse puppet goo, Zhang Xian felt a chill run down his spine. If it was disgusting, was there a need to keep eating it? Furthermore, he was eating so noisily. It was obvious that he was enjoying the food. Let me tell you. Master said, as long as I bring a bunch of brothers over to help you, you will be in charge of our meat. We are carnivores. We want to eat meat. The strange beast stuck out its tongue again. The robotic voice shook Yiqing Luo's ears to the point of pain. Stop the nonsense. Since you're here, hurry up and start eating. Let's finish eating these worms first. Yiqing Luo lifted her leg and kicked it towards the direction where the corpse puppet parasites were. Chio rolled around in a circle and muttered a few words. It obediently called out to the other mutated beasts and started to feast on the corpse puppet goo. The profounders from the various powers were dumbfounded as they stared at the sudden reversal of the situation. More than 50 mutated beasts appeared. They finally had time to catch their breath and rest. The two executive elders put down their weapons and sat on the ground, sweating profusely. Madam, thank you so much. You've saved everyone again. the profound practitioners of the various major powers immediately expressed their gratitude. Yiqing Luo waved her hand. You don't have to thank me, it's the contribution of these strange beasts. After this matter is over, it's enough for you to treat these strange beasts well. The executive elder and the profound practitioners of the various great forces nodded repeatedly. Well said, well said. As long as I can leave this damned place alive. What was the point of taking out some meat to entertain these aberrations? As long as these strange beasts could protect their lives. Even if they had to eat till they were poor, they were willing. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept across the surroundings and finally landed on the direction of the black hole which the strange beasts had drilled out from. Chapter 3768. Ah Luo. Qiao Yinyan frowned as he called out to Yiqing Luo, it's too dangerous for you to go alone. With Azure Dragon around, I'll be fine. Yiqing Luo smiled at him. Pei Xing's dark golden eyes flashed. He didn't agree with Pei Xing's suggestion. Luo, Brother Qiao is right. The Palace of Darkness is too cunning. No one knows what kind of strange things will appear in the next second. Even with Azure Dragon, it is still too dangerous. Yiqing Luo knew that they were worried about her. At this critical juncture, acting alone was simply an act of courting death. But she had to find the eye of the array as soon as possible and crack this array. She could feel that following the appearance of the corpse puppet goo, the atmosphere of the entire auction was getting gloomier and gloomier. As if every breath was filled with cold air. The reason why the cultivators from the major forces had yet to notice was because they were experiencing a life and death battle and were drenched in sweat. When they relaxed a little, Yizichen this cold and evil Yin Qi would definitely corrode them. Moreover, Yiqing Luo's vision slowly looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. Her charming eyes were filled with a trace of hazy tenderness. Ah, Xian is still fighting for me. I also want to do something. At least when he returns in triumph, I can go home with him. Her voice was very gentle. When she mentioned Ah Xian, her eyes were filled with deep affection. Everyone was stunned by these words. Pei Xing was the first to compromise, then. Ah Luo, you have to be careful. I will. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up as she replied with a sweet smile. Just as she was about to walk towards Azure Dragon, a hand was placed in front of Yiqing Luo. Qiao Yinyan's expression was grave, his deep eyes stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. His silver hair, slapped on his face, made his expression look somewhat unreal. He opened his mouth. Ah Luo, if you insist on going, I'll accompany her. Qiao Yinyan hadn't finished his words. A voice that was as cold as ice interrupted his words. That voice was very light. But it was filled with unquestionable courage. He had effortlessly suppressed Qiao Yinyan's imposing manner. Qiao Yinyan pursed his lips, his face ashen as he looked in the direction of the voice. What is the meaning of this, Pavilion Master? I'll accompany her. It's safer than you. Zhu Wuxin's expression was indifferent. Qiao Yinyan gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He was indignant, but he couldn't refute this fact. Yiqing Luo saw the atmosphere between the both of them getting fiercer and fiercer as she hurriedly coughed lightly. Then let's do it this way, we'll go investigate the surrounding situation first. Be careful and don't let your guard down. She didn't allow Qiao Yinyan and the others to follow her. He was worried that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would come up with some sinister tricks. With the Azure Dragon's protection, she was not afraid. However, she could not guarantee Qiao Yinyan's safety. However, Zhu Wuxin was different. Putting aside the fact that Zhu Wuxin's strength was clearly not much different from the palace master behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness. Otherwise, there would not be the talk of working together. And then there was Zhu Wuxin. in any case, no matter what she said, she would not be able to persuade Zhu Wuxin. In that case, he would just let him follow. After exhorting a few words, Yiqing Luo kept Shi Ju into the pet space as she flipped over and leapt onto the back of the azure dragon, which had transformed into a normal size, flying towards the front. Zhu Wuxin leapt up and stood on the back of the azure dragon. The azure dragon's tail moved, as though it wanted to slap him away. Chapter 3769. The azure dragon exhaled and did not continue to use its tail to torment Zhu Wuxin. With two people on his back, he turned into a streak of blue light and disappeared before everyone's eyes. After a few twists and turns in the auction, the towering and magnificent buildings had already collapsed and turned into a pile of ruins. The eaves were crushed, and the beams and pillars of the house fell to the ground. Yiqing Luo had been flying one round in the skies above the auction, as she took a look at the auction as a whole. She raised her head and looked at the barrier above her head. He approached the edge of the formation from a close distance. Yiqing Luo could see it clearly. About 20 meters above the auction, there was a transparent barrier that looked like rippling water. Indistinctly, one could see the rampaging black gas twining around them. As Azure Dragon carried Yiqing Luo on his back and neared them, that black chi actually turned into a huge ferocious beast as it opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Yiqing Luo. That stance seemed as though it wanted to swallow Yiqing Luo into its stomach. There was a barrier between them. Yiqing Luo could feel the yin chi rushing towards her. But Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to evade when that black chi opened its bloody mouth. She quietly raised her head and watched the bloody mouth descend. He looked calm and indifferent. Even the expression in his eyes did not change at all. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxian's brows creased as he gave a low rebuke in displeasure, speedily approaching Yiqing Luo as he stretched out his hand in an attempt to pull her away. But in the next instant, the black gas that had formed a bloody mouth smashed into the barrier of the formation. Instantly, it turned into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared. Zhu Wuxin's outstretched hand stiffened. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as she slapped Zhu Wuxian's hand away. "We're in the array, she can't enter." Zhu Wuxin's eyes flickered, and he withdrew his hand. "I need to find the core of this formation and break it." Yiqing Luo took another look at the transparent profound wave above her head as she pursed her lips slightly. "Zhu Wuxian, towards the Palace of Seclusion, you're more familiar with it. What do you think this array is?" Zhu Wuxin's eyes were still lowered, staring at his retracted hand in a daze. Hearing Yiqing Luo's question, he suddenly raised his head. A pair of jet black icy cold eyes directly met with Yiqing Luo's eyes. He was stunned for a moment, until Yiqing Luo repeated the question. Only then did Zhu Wuxin move his thin lips and say calmly, "I am only cooperating with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness for a certain purpose, but I do not know much about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness." He paused and seemed to have thought of something as he stared at Yiqing Luo and spoke in an extremely serious tone. "I'm working together with the Palace of Darkness, but it doesn't mean that I'm doing things in the same way as them. Towards the Palace of Darkness, I despise the insidious tricks they play in the dark." Yiqing Luo. She was slightly shocked by Zhu Wuxian's serious explanation. She expressed that she only thought that Zhu Wuxin was knowledgeable and would know the name of this formation. He didn't think too much about it. Zhu Wuxin had actually imagined so much. Wouldn't it be a little too embarrassing? Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she replied, "I'm just asking casually. Since you don't know, let's check again and find the array first." Without waiting for Zhu Wuxin's reply, Yiqing Luo had already made the green dragon fly downwards. It circled around the huge rock ruins for half a round or so. Yiqing Luo suddenly called out to the green dragon. She lowered her head as she looked at a certain spot below. That pair of narrow long charming eyes were sparkling brilliantly, like the brilliance of the sun and moon, dazzling and eye-catching. Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her hand. The glower flame fan in her hand suddenly opened up. Chapter 3770. The glower flame fan instantly rotated as it floated above Yiqing Luo's palm. She raised the other hand as profound energy enveloped her palm and injected it into the glower flame fan. The glower flame fan rotated faster and faster. All of a sudden, it turned into a sharp blade and charged towards a certain direction on the ground. The force of the dive was extremely strong. The bewitching red glow was extremely dazzling. The majestic profound energy also revolved around the glower flame fan, which created a hurricane. Bam! The glower flame fan landed heavily on the ground. A deafening explosion was heard, accompanied by the shaking of the earth and mountains. Between the shattered rocks, a huge deep pit was blasted out at a certain place. The remaining profound cheese mite was still wantonly spreading. Billowing dust obscured everything in front of them. The green dragon was nearer to the ground. Dust and shattered rocks flew all over Yiqing Luo and Zhu Wuxian's faces. Zhu Wuxian flicked his sleeves as he shook off the aftermath in front of him. He frowned as his cold eyes swept towards Yiqing Luo. Towards Yiqing Luo's actions, he was extremely puzzled. But he didn't ask the reason why Yiqing Luo did this. He only pursed his lips tightly as he stared at Yiqing Luo, waiting for her next move. Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to dodge the flying shattered rocks and dust. Instead, she leapt upwards. Leaping down from the green dragon's back, she headed towards the deep pit which was shaking with the remaining might. She quickly stopped on a huge rock which was about to collapse and fall into the deep pit. The huge rock swayed slightly as it fell a little towards the deep pit. Even the surface of the huge rock had a few cracks on it. Yiqing Luo carefully nudged her feet as she neared the huge pit. When the green dragon saw this, it immediately charged down and circled around Yiqing Luo's side, protecting her at all times. Zhu Wuxian, who was standing on the green dragon's back, was also brought over by the green dragon. He took a look at Yiqing Luo's careful look as she stood on the huge rock. In his icy cold eyes, an undetectable glint flashed past. Pursing his thin lips tightly, his brows rose slightly. He suddenly leapt up from the green dragon's back. His figure was light as he landed beside Yiqing Luo. The huge rock which was suspended in mid-air was originally unstable as it swayed and hung by the side of the huge pit. Zhu Wuxian approached. Suddenly, the boulder lost its balance and fell into the pit. When the boulder shook, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but stared fiercely at Zhu Wuxian. Just as the boulder was about to collapse, he leaped up. Just as he landed, he stepped on another boulder. Zhu Wuxian's body suddenly pressed closer. His hand stretched out directly as he clasped onto Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Then, the other hand wrapped around her. It was as if he wanted to pull her into his arms. Zhu Wuxian. Yiqing Luo was stunned by Zhu Wuxian's actions. As he stretched out his other hand, she immediately raised her hand and blocked Zhu Wuxian's wrist. "Let go. I'll support you, so there's no need for you to stand." Zhu Wuxian's cold eyes met her eyes and explained. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. "I don't need it." Zhu Wuxian's expression did not change. "Why do you like rejecting me so much? I don't have the energy to stay here and discuss this topic with you." Yiqing Luo pushed his hand away from her shoulder. "I only want to find the direction of the erase eye and find the witch goo master who is controlling the corpse puppet goo, then wait for Oxian's victorious return and leave with him. As for the rest, I don't want to." After she pushed Zhu Wuxian away, her figure flashed as she speedily stepped onto another piece of more dangerous huge rock. But she staggered extremely. Chapter 3771. Zhu Wuxian fixed his eyes on her petite figure as he tried his best to maintain his balance. His expression sunk slightly as the chill in his eyes grew even more. Yiqing Luo felt his icy cold gaze. But she didn't want to give any response. Zhu Wuxian's stubbornness had already seeped deep into his bone marrow. Even if she rejected him explicitly, Zhu Wuxian wouldn't listen to her. So she couldn't be bothered to emphasize that she wouldn't accept any feelings from him. Actions to prove it was the real proof. Yiqing Luo concealed the emotions in her eyes as she refocused her attention on the deep pit. The remnant mite was still vibrating. The rolling airwaves and dust made the entire deep pit look hazy. She stretched out her slender white wrist towards the deep pit. Her 5 fingers opened up. Swoosh! A sound that cut through the air was heard. A fiery remnant shadow flashed past and landed into Yiqing Luo's palm. It was the glower flame fan. Yiqing Luo held the glower flame fan as her profound energy burst forth. Immediately after, it swept up a hurricane as it charged into the deep pit. The surrounding remnant mite and the billowing dust were all lingering in the hurricane. The situation in the deep pit. It was clearly reflected in Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo bent over slightly as she looked into the deep pit. The spacious and long deep pit was filled with shattered rocks. What are you looking for? Zhu Wuxian stood in the air as he stood behind her, his brows creased slightly. Yiqing Luo didn't reply as her gaze swiftly wandered among the shattered rocks. Suddenly, her gaze stopped at a certain spot. Her lips curled as she laughed softly, found it. Immediately after, she leapt up and stepped into the deep pit. Zhu Wuxian followed closely behind. Yiqing Luo used her profound energy to carve out a path among the shattered rocks. Zhu Wuxian then saw that under the shattered rocks, a broken black vine was revealed. That vine was different from ordinary vines. The surface of the vine was covered with layers of sharp thorns. And densely packed, big and small holes occupied the entire vine. It was faintly mixed with strands of evil qi. This is... Zhu Wuxian frowned slightly when he saw the vine. He sensed an extremely uncomfortable feeling from the vines. A goo master's medium to control the corpse puppet goo. Yiqing Luo stared at the vine for a long time. As she opened her mouth with a grave expression, the witchcraft master used this vine to control thousands of corpse puppet goo, which means to say, by following this vine, we will be able to find the witchcraft master. She paused and looked at the other end, at the vines that were still in the rock wall, and said, this place might be the core of the formation. When Zhu Wuxian heard that, he looked at Yiqing Luo's expression as it gradually turned gentle. A pair of cold eyes stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. For some reason, Yiqing Luo had a strange feeling being stared at by him. Because her analysis made him feel very satisfied. This thought had just flashed across his mind. Then Zhu Wuxian asked, how did you discover this place? Yiqing Luo replied, because of the mutated beast. Based on the direction in which the aberration beast emerged, as well as the fluctuations from the aberration beast, as well as the terrain of the auction, I was able to deduce its location. She narrowed her eyes. The expression on her face was slightly solemn and cold. Let's hurry up and find the witchcraft master and the array core, to settle the auction. As Yiqing Luo said that, she tried to use her profound energy to touch that vine. However, before his dark force came into contact with the vines, Zhu Wuxian seemed to have sensed something as his expression suddenly turned cold. He swiftly stretched out his hand, trying to pull Yiqing Luo to his side. Chapter 3772. Under the deep pit, the dark light swept out and illuminated the entire space. Yiqing Luo felt a strong suction force, causing her red robe and black hair to curl up wildly. She could even feel an extremely dangerous aura rapidly spreading towards her. Danger! Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She didn't even have time to turn back. Meanwhile, Zhu Wuxin's hand reached out to her. Yiqing Luo had no chance to hesitate. She quickly stretched out her hand towards Zhu Wuxin's palm. She had to get rid of this terrifying suction force. However, her hand had yet to approach Zhu Wuxin. That terrifying suction force instantly swallowed her whole body. The azure dragon instantly turned into a ray of green light and returned to Yiqing Luo's pet space. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxian sped up, wanting to rush into the whirlpool together with her. But when Yiqing Luo's figure disappeared into the whirlpool black hole, the vortex quickly turned into a bolt of lightning. With a flash, it disappeared into thin air. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxian's eyes were cold and sharp as he raised his palm, pushing it towards the direction where the whirlpool had disappeared. The ice-cold aura seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth. At this moment, the broken vines that had lost all signs of life suddenly seemed to have received some kind of order. When Zhu Wuxian wasn't paying attention, suddenly, it charged towards Zhu Wuxian's direction and wrapped around him. The vines were extremely fast. The vines were densely packed with small holes, and dense evil energy seeped out. They were like open mouths that wanted to swallow Zhu Wuxin. Scram! Zhu Wuxian was anxious, his expression as cold as ice. When the vines got close, he waved his sleeves and split the vines apart. The vines were torn apart and hung limply on the gravel. Zhu Wuxian's eyes sunk gloomily. Because he had witnessed Yiqing Luo disappearing right in front of his eyes, he was vexed and infuriated, making him unable to vent the anger in his heart. Suddenly, the words that Yiqing Luo said earlier rang in his mind. His cold eyes narrowed slightly, and his killing intent immediately manifested. Dark Nether Palace. Dark Nether Palace. Yiqing Luo had mentioned before that this vine was most probably the medium for the witchcraft master to control the corpse puppet goo. It was also the direction of the eye of the formation. Since the Abyss Palace dared to hurt Yiqing Luo, then he would destroy the plan of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. He was determined to break this array formation. The coldness in Zhu Wuxian's eyes was like a storm on a snowy mountain, sweeping through his pupils. He stared at the vine and slowly walked towards it. Suddenly, a shrill, sinister, and trembling voice rang out. Young Master Chu, please show mercy. Zhu Wuxin's footsteps halted. The source of the sound was the vine. He lowered his cold eyes and looked at the vine. The vine swayed its long and thin branches and said with a flattering smile, Young Master Chu and the Palace of Gloomy Shadows used to be partners. There's no need to make things so awkward for such a small matter. Zhu Wuxin did not say anything. He was probably used to Zhu Wuxin's indifference. The vine continued, as long as young Master Chu is an outsider and doesn't interfere in this matter, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness promises to do anything for young Master Chu unconditionally. Zhu Wuxin raised his eyes slightly and in his eyes, there was a glimmer. The vine naturally detected Zhu Wuxin's change and immediately laughed. Young Master Chu has worked together with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness for many years, so you should understand the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Since this is the condition that we have promised to young Master Chu, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness will definitely abide by it. After a long time. Chapter 3773. The person on the other end of the vine was startled by the long silence and felt his hair stand on end. Not getting an answer, he coughed lightly to break the deadlock. Young Patriarch Chu, what do you think? Ha! A light laugh, like a cold wind brushing past one's face. Zhu Wuxian's thin lips curled into an extremely faint cold arc. His jet-black pupils were deep and icy cold, encircling layers of storms. He laughed. His laughter was icy cold. It made one's heart turn cold. On the other side, Yiqing Luo was being sucked by that terrifying suction force as she felt the world spinning around her. Following that, she was thrown heavily onto the ground. The impact force made her frown in pain. She hadn't reacted in time to what was going on. Suddenly, a strong sense of danger gushed out from the bottom of her heart. It was almost her body's instinct. Yiqing Luo slapped the ground fiercely. Her body quickly rolled a few rounds on the ground. The intense pain on her body intensified. And boiling hot blood, seeping out from her wound. But she didn't have time to check on her wound. The place where she was at earlier. A burst of energy which seemed to be able to destroy the heaven and earth came crashing down. Even though she had avoided that burst of energy, Yiqing Luo was still unable to avoid the remnant energy as she flew out once again. The moment her body rose into the sky, Yiqing Luo swiftly circulated her profound jade heart and used her profound energy to drag her body, preventing her body from crashing onto the ground once again, causing her wound to worsen. What made her most surprised was that valiant energy which made one appalled. When she crashed onto the ground wasn't damaged at all. Profound light flashed and swept past. Then it dissipated in front of her eyes. What on earth was going on? That burst of boundless profound energy that was so strong that even her breathing felt oppressive. It absolutely couldn't be faked. And that intimidating remnant energy, she could feel it clearly. But why wasn't there any impact on the surrounding environment at all? Her slender brows creased tightly. Just as she was about to raise her head and look towards the direction where the energy came from. Suddenly, a panicked and worried voice sounded beside his ear, "Lil Luor." Yiqing Luo's body suddenly stiffened. She quickly propped herself up and looked towards the direction where she was called. What she saw was the man's imposing figure standing in the air. The man's purple robe danced wildly in the strong wind. His sleeves fluttered like rolling purple clouds, surging with hidden storms. The sky was filled with dark radiance and flowing lights. It made the man look like a deity. His peerless face was filled with worry. His almond-shaped eyes stared at her without blinking. His brows were filled with worry and anxiety. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Xian. Why did she see Xian? Didn't Xian go to the space of consciousness to fight with that person called Yuzun? Wait a minute. Space of consciousness. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers trembled slightly. Suddenly, she stood up abruptly and took 2 steps back. She staggered a little. Where she was now, it was a place like the vast starry sky of the universe. There was nothing else in all directions. His dark force swept around him. Yiqing Luo understood. She is now, it was sucked into the space of Dmo Xian's consciousness. It was no wonder that the earth-shattering power had disappeared the moment it hit the ground. Because this was the space of consciousness. Why was she sucked into Dmo Xian's space of consciousness? When could it be? A thought flashed past Yiqing Luo's mind. Chapter 3774. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian's anxious growl was heard beside her ear. Yiqing Luo saw Dmo Xian's purple figure from the corner of her eye, closing in on her speedily. She realized something. But with her own speed, she had no way to react. Immediately following that, a gust of sinister wind closed in from behind. A hand clasped onto her shoulder. The violent and terrifying pressure made her chest feel stuffy as a mouthful of blood spilled out from the corner of her lips. A thick blood stench filled Yiqing Luo's nose. She couldn't tell if it was the blood stench on her. Or was it from the person behind her who was holding her neck tightly, emitting a bloody stench. It was so thick as though someone had poured a large bowl of thick blood into her throat. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian's pupils constricted as he roared. Violent profound energy shot out, turning into thousands of layers of huge waves, attacking Yiqing Luo's back. Overlord. Above her head, a slightly anxious and gloomy voice was heard. Following that, Yiqing Luo felt the force on her neck increasing. A tyrannical and terrifying aura pervaded her surroundings. As though hell was beckoning to her. If you dare to move, I'll bring her along to hell. The gloomy voice was filled with a probing threat. Yiqing Luo's neck was forced to tilt backwards. She gave a dull moan as her slender brows creased into a bundle. From this angle, she was coincidentally able to see that person's face behind her clearly. It was Yu Zun. Only, the current Yu Zun was totally not as energetic as before when he appeared at the auction. The brocade robe on him had several holes in it. His hair, which was originally neat and tidy, also fell down, baring his teeth and brandishing his claws. His face was pale and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely disheveled. Apparently, it was a battle with Dmo Xian in this consciousness space. Dmo Xian had the upper hand. Oh! Her neck suddenly tightened. The icy cold prickling pain made her moan in pain. At the same time, the violent profound energy which surged over instantly stopped. The man's furious growl was heard, Yu Zun. Ha ha ha. Yu Zun held on to Yiqing Luo as he laughed. Have you ever thought that you would have such a day? Ha ha ha. The probing had gotten the result. Holding on to Yiqing Luo as a bargaining chip. Yu Zun was completely fearless. Not long ago, a dignified venerable emperor actually had a weakness. Ha ha ha. Let her go. Dmo Xian stared intently at Yiqing Luo. The worry in his eyes was not concealed at all. Looking at Yiqing Luo's pale face and her entire body covered in blood. His heart felt like it was being pricked by a needle. There seemed to be something in his body that was slowly eroding away at him. Even breathing had become extremely difficult. Yiqing Luo was suffering. He felt even more pain. TSK. Zun, with your intelligence, shouldn't you pretend that you don't care about this woman and take the opportunity to save her? After revered Lord had his trump card, the humiliation he had suffered in Dmo Xian's hands earlier seemed as though he could get it back. He clasped Yiqing Luo's neck tightly as he laughed wildly. Exposing your weakness to the enemy is a huge taboo. Yiqing Luo forced herself not to reveal a painful expression to make Dmo Xian worried. She knew that it was impossible for Dmo Xian to do what revered Lord said. Because Dmo Xian was unable to gamble with her safety. He would rather let others know about her weakness, to use it to threaten him. He couldn't bear to let her suffer any harm. Only by letting revered Lord know that she was a threat to him. Chapter 3775. Revered Lord, what do you want? Dmo Xian's gaze was chilly as he stared at the hand which was clutching Yiqing Luo's neck as he said word by word, let go of her. What do you want? I'll listen to you. When revered Lord heard that, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. In this case, you're letting me deal with you because of this woman, right? Yes. Dmo Xian replied straightforwardly. Then. I want you, the esteemed overlord, to kneel in front of me and admit that I, revered Lord, am the only revered Lord in this world. Revered Lord laughed sinisterly as he lowered his head and looked at Yiqing Luo who was being restrained by him. Young lady, what do you think of this request? Yiqing Luo's neck was forced backwards as her pair of charming eyes stared fiercely at revered Lord as she gritted her teeth. Pooey. If you have the ability, try and make a move on me. Ha ha ha, young lady, before I die, I'll bring the person whom he treasures the most into hell. Seeing him in pain, it's not a loss for me. Revered Lord laughed sinisterly as he got closer to Yi Qing Luo's face. Young lady, don't try to agitate me. She felt the man's breath spraying down. Yi Qing Luo knitted her brows in disgust as she sneered, not a loss. I'm merely a nobody in you. If you die, all your glory will vanish into thin air. Moreover, you, revered lord, in the world's gossip, will forever be my Xian's defeated opponent. Perhaps it was her last sentence which agitated revered lord. Revered lord's expression suddenly turned steely green. His hands suddenly clasped tightly onto her slender shoulder. His fingers seemed as though he was going to break her bones. It was so painful that Yi Qing Luo's face turned pale as sweat started to form on her forehead. What a sharp-tongued lass. Revered lord's other hand locked onto her chin. I really want to teach this mouth of yours a lesson. Yi Qing Luo was in pain from being pinched, but her eyes were still filled with ridicule. Just make your move. Let's see if your speed is faster or Xian's speed is faster. Revered lord's steely green face instantly turned into a gloomy cloud. He fiercely shook Yi Qing Luo's chin away, not even wanting to say a word to her. His face turned black as he looked at Dmo Xian as he spoke sinisterly. The woman you find is the same as you, disgusting. As he spoke, his rather handsome face contorted into a deformed expression. Di Zun, have you thought it through? Do you want to save your face and lose the woman you love, or do you want to kneel in front of me for the woman you love? Dmo Xian's gaze had always been on Yi Qing Luo's. That pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes seemed to contain infinite tenderness. Yi Qing Luo saw the meaning in his eyes and her expression changed slightly. Ah Xian, I don't allow you to do this. Even if you do it, he won't let me go. Dmo Xian curled his thin lips at her, as if he was comforting her. Then, when he raised his eyes to look at the dark prime, his entire aura underwent a complete change. His gaze was awe-inspiring, and his aura was terrifying. Word by word, he spat out from his lips, if you keep your word, I will agree to your request. Ha! Ha ha ha! When Nether Prime heard this answer, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He looked at Dmo Xian as though he was looking at an idiot. Do you know, if a strong practitioner has a soft spot, what's the consequence? His voice was filled with complacency. Now, I'll tell you, what's the consequence? Nether Prime laughed sinisterly as he leapt up, charging towards Dmo Xian. Chapter 3776. Dmo Xian was just about to make his move. Yuzun's complacent voice rang out, don't try to resist. If this palm doesn't land on you, then, your beloved woman will bear it for you. Dmo Xian's figure was completely rooted to the ground. Dark venerable. Yi Qing Luo's pupils constricted as she gritted her teeth and roared out Yuzun's name. Ah Xian, don't bother about me. I want to see if he really dares to make a move against me. She bet that he wouldn't dare. Once he made a move, Dmo Xian would not hesitate to make his move. The Nether Prime could at most only use her to delay the time of this battle. But, bang, that palm landed squarely on Dmo Xian's shoulder. Dmo Xian was forced to retreat several steps. When he regained his balance, the corner of his lips was slightly pale, and a trace of blood flowed out. That shade of red pierced Yi Qing Luo's eyes. That palm landed on Dmo Xian's body. It was like a blow to her heart. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. A surge of blood kept surging in his chest, as if it would gush out from his throat at any moment. It was all because of her. It was all because of her. That was why Dmo Xian was controlled by others. He already had a foolproof plan in his mind. She was almost 80% sure that the Dark Lord wouldn't dare to make a move against her. But Dmo Xian cared about her. Because he cared. He dared not gamble with her. Therefore, he would rather bear this palm strike himself. Ah Xian. Looking at Dmo Xian, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, Yiqing Luo's voice was choked. She looked at Dmo Xian. Tears welled up in his eyes. The blood that was surging in his chest. It made her throat feel fishy and sweet. Ah Xian. Ah Xian, ah Xian, she had clearly instructed him not to let himself get hurt for her sake. But now, it was for her, he endured the Dark Lord's humiliation. Her Ah Xian. How could he allow others to humiliate him? Dmo Xian smirked at her, his smile was very faint. However, the gentleness and love in his eyes were still as deep as ever. This smile made Yiqing Luo's eyelashes wet with a layer of mist. Her drooping black hair covered her eyes, which were gradually turning red. The aura on his body was also gradually changing. It was a very subtle change, ha ha ha, Dmo Xian. This is the price to pay for having a soft spot. Yuzun laughed in satisfaction. Looking at Dmo Xian's swaying body, he felt extremely carefree in his heart. His heart was filled with the satisfaction of injuring and humiliating Dmo Xian. He didn't notice the changes that were happening to the woman he was holding. To be more precise, to Yuzun. This woman was an ant that he could strangle to death with a flick of his finger. He did not care about her at all, so why would he pay attention to her changes? This woman is really important to you. It was not in vain that I spent so much effort to pull her into the space of your consciousness. Ha ha ha, Dmo Xian. There's more exciting things waiting for you next. Yu Venerable raised his palm. A majestic and tyrannical profound energy, like a hurricane whirlpool, surged in his palm. Along with the Nether Prime's wild laughter. The hurricane grew fiercer and fiercer. The aura of the entire space changed. The hurricane rose abruptly and the vast starry sky in the space seemed to be swept along with the hurricane. This palm, his target, was Dmo Xian's chest. As long as this palm landed. If Dmo Xian didn't die, he would be crippled. When Dmo Xian had no way to retaliate. He would torture Yiqing Luo bit by bit in front of Dmo Xian. Chapter 3777. In his mind, it was as though he had already sketched out a beautiful picture of the future. Revered Lord gave a sinister smile as his eyes were filled with complacency and murderous intent. That palm was aimed directly at Dmo Xian's chest, as it chopped downwards. Dmo Xian's expression changed slightly. When that palm landed, his muscles tensed up. He naturally could tell what Revered Lord was planning. Revered Lord's palm was aimed at the weakest part of his body. As long as he received this palm, his 5 viscera and 6 bowels would probably be severely injured. Earlier when he was in the spirit-devouring array, the injuries to his soul would probably be dragged out. By then, Dmo Xian's eyes turned colder and colder. His brain was working quickly. His injuries were nothing. But if he lost his battle power, Revered Lord would absolutely not keep his promise. He must ensure Lil Luo's safety before he was heavily injured. The violent and ferocious palm filled with murderous intent was already pressing downwards. A glint flashed past Dmo Xian's eyes. He didn't evade this palm. Instead, he faced this palm and stretched out his hand towards the direction where Revered Lord was holding on to Yiqing Luo. Revered Lord was shocked by Dmo Xian's sudden action. Was he crazy? He was prepared to use his own body to forcefully snatch Yiqing Luo from his hands. Revered Lord couldn't understand Dmo Xian's actions. The palm had already landed. If he stuffed Yiqing Luo behind him and avoided Dmo Xian's outstretched hand, that palm which he struck out would definitely be deflected. If this palm was deflected, he would lose control of Dmo Xian. That would give Dmo Xian a chance to turn things around. He couldn't avoid it. Revered Lord's gaze was sinister as his murderous aura intensified. What an infatuated person. I'll fulfill your wish. He wanted to see how Dmo Xian was going to protect Yi Qing Luo after being hit by this palm. Everything would proceed according to his plans. The murderous aura in Revered Lord's eyes became more and more intense. His palm was like a hot knife cutting through butter, and his profound energy was like a surging flood. Even the air was intimidated by this energy, and there were traces of electric currents flickering in the air. Boom! A huge explosion reverberated through the entire space. It was accompanied by a shrill scream. But this miserable shriek was not Dmo Xian's voice. Instead, the Nether Prime's face was pale, beads of cold sweat the size of beans rolling down from his forehead. The intense pain eroded his body and mind. It was as if something was rampaging in his body. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels, and even all the bones in his body were smashed to pieces. He opened his mouth in pain and howled miserably. His widened eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. What was going on? Why was everything not going in the direction he had envisioned? Yuzun twisted his head in pain. The tearing pain made him break out in cold sweat. His gaze slowly landed on the source of the pain. His hand was still maintaining the motion of swinging his palm downwards. It was just a finger's distance away from Dmo Xian. But he couldn't swing that palm down for a long time. This was because a slender white hand had grabbed his wrist. All of his strength was locked in that small, slender, white hand. He wanted to move. However, he was suppressed by that small hand and was unable to move at all. From the strength of that small hand which was gripping his wrist. Wave after wave of berserk profound energy followed his wrist and rushed into his body. Like a sharp blade. Chapter 3778. But what shocked him the most was, this slender hand actually belonged to that woman whom he totally disregarded and treated as a hostage, Yi Qing Luo. When did she break free from his restraint? And when did she clasp his wrist? He totally didn't feel anything at all. He only knew that at the moment when his palm was about to land on Dmo Xian's chest, turning him into a cripple completely. His wrist was already clasped by Yi Qing Luo. Immediately following that, a violent surge of profound energy pressed against his internal organs. And there was a sharp blade, cutting his heart. Traces of profound energy, probing towards his profound jade heart. And he, totally had no room to resist at all. This was impossible. How could she possibly have such a powerful energy? If there was such a powerful energy, how could he possibly not sense it? Could it be Dmo Xian's doing? Yuzun, who was in extreme pain, stared fiercely at Dmo Xian. But he saw Dmo Xian's expression was slightly stunned as his brows creased tightly, looking at Yi Qing Luo in bewilderment. As though he was shocked by the energy that Yi Qing Luo had unleashed. "My man, you dare to touch him." The young lady's cold voice seemed to be covered with frost. A pair of blood-red eyes surged with ice-cold monstrous waves. Her 5 fingers suddenly tightened. "It's this hand that injured my man." A "Kacha" sound was heard. Yuzun's right hand was broken by Yi Qing Luo barehandedly. Yi Qing Luo raised her leg and kicked Yuzun's chest fiercely. Yuzun flew backwards, falling under the vast starry sky. He cried out in pain, hugging his broken arm as he rolled around. Blood kept seeping out, dyeing his robe red. The young lady stood in the air. Her flamboyant red robe was like a dazzling poppy, flamboyant and eye-catching. The strong wind danced wildly, blowing against her fine black hair. The young lady's face was devastatingly beautiful, her brows were sharp and stern. Her enchanting eyes were filled with the world's coldest ice. As though it was just a glance. Then it would be frozen into frost. Flamboyant, peerlessly beautiful. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian stared intently at Yi Qing Luo, as his peach blossom eyes sparkled. The girl in front of him. Just like his little Luo heir. However, there seemed to be something different. It was a breathtaking aura. Even he felt a trace of pressure. Perhaps it hurt his voice. The girl slowly glanced over. At this moment, her beautiful face, which could topple cities, seemed to melt like snow. Her long and narrow eyes, which were dyed red, seemed to be dotted with a myriad of spring waters, like peach blossoms. She smiled at him. Her smile was beautiful and captivating. Her red eyes were enchanting and charming. Dmo Xian's brows gradually softened. This was his little Luo heir. No matter what her current situation was. However, her soul was still Lil Luo, You did it on purpose. You did it on purpose. The Nether Prime's voice broke the sweetness between the two of them. He staggered to his feet. He was in an extremely sorry state. He stared deadly at Yi Qing Luo, as though he wanted to slice her into 1,000 pieces. Yi Qing Luo's gaze shifted back onto Yuzun. The coldness and contempt in his eyes were extremely clear. As though he was mocking Yuzun for overestimating his own ability. She leapt upwards. The fiery red long robe was like a raging fire, blossoming brilliantly in the sky, weaving streaks of colorful clouds. A majestic aura, as though it could stir the 9 heavens, burst forth from her body. So powerful that. Chapter 3779. Yu Venerable's pupils constricted as disbelief and fear surged beneath his eyes. You're not Yi Qing Luo. Oh. The young lady's pink lips curled slightly as she breathed out a light breath from her nose. Under those cold, sharp, charming eyes, her gaze was cold, noble, and breathtaking. Even Yu Venerable, who was used to killing. When he met the sharp, cold, and frost-like eyes, he felt a chill run down his spine. His throat couldn't help but tighten as his heart felt as though it was being strangled tightly by something. Yu Venerable's heart thumped hard. His heart kept sinking. What was going on? The young lady in front of him still looked the same. But her entire person had undergone an earth-shattering change. If it was in the past, when he looked at Yi Qing Luo, he only felt that this young lady had a peerless beauty, but her ability was meager. As long as he moved his finger, he would be able to pull her in easily. But now, the aura that Yi Qing Luo released and the boundless profound energy that she was emitting, all these showed her extraordinariness. Especially in front of the young lady's chest, there seemed to be a ball of blazing flame. The enchanting red glow pierced Yu Venerable's eyes. Even though he couldn't see clearly, the thing under the flame. Yu Venerable was very clear. That was the young lady's profound jade heart which was releasing its power. It could be said. The current Yi Qing Luo. She was totally a strong existence who was on par with him, or even Dmo Xian. He had actually misjudged her. This young lady had concealed herself too well. Yu Venerable. The young lady's clear voice was like an orchid in an empty valley, extremely pleasing to the ears. But that voice was mixed with a chilly intent, making one feel a chill down one's spine. Yu Venerable's heart thumped fiercely again. His heart felt as though it was going to jump out from his throat. He clenched his teeth tightly as he suppressed the heavy pressure in his heart. His vicious eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. 1 Dmo Xian. He had already suffered a lot. Moreover, He had long heard that Dmo Xian was injured and his ability was not even half of his peak. He thought that he could take advantage of the situation to stop Dmo Xian. To seek back all the humiliation that he had suffered from Dmo Xian. But he had not expected that even the injured Dmo Xian. He was also not Dmo Xian's opponent. Now with the addition of Yiqing Luo, who he couldn't see through it all. If he didn't seize the opportunity to kill one of them, he would definitely die. Today, he was most likely doomed. The murderous intent in the Nether Prime's eyes instantly surged intensely. All the dark force in his body was entangled crazily. However, in the face of Lord Yu's vigilance, Yiqing Luo, who had made up her mind to go all out, didn't even bat an eyelid. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with light, like the twinkling of stars. His eyes were filled with calmness and indifference. He was neither happy nor angry, neither arrogant nor rash. He was emotionless. She said, "There's no need to look at Xiao Xian. I can deal with you alone." She smiled sweetly and her smile was incomparably beautiful. However, there was not a trace of warmth in the depths of her eyes. She lifted her fair and slender hand slowly. A streak of lightning-like flowing light danced in her palm. From time to time, there would be crackling sounds. When Yuzun's vision came into contact with the electric current running around in Yiqing Luo's palm, he staggered back a few steps, as if he had been frightened. Thunderclap incantation. This power. Don't tell me you are. His face alternated between pale white and steely green. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 3780. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as she smiled sweetly. "Oh. So you know what this is." Her 5 fingers moved slightly. The flickering electric current started to move faster and faster. The electric current crackled as though it was dipped in poison, icy cold and sinister. She slowly raised her hand. The electric ball in her hand covered the smile on her face. But it couldn't conceal the cold teasing glint in her eyes. Only a dead person can keep a secret, then. "I can only kill you." Her tone was indifferent, carrying an irresistible dignity. The murderous intent in her words made Yuzun awaken from his stupor. He pursed his lips tightly as his twisted face was half unwillingness and half astonishment. Suddenly, he pounced towards Yiqing Luo. Monstrous profound energy gathered around his body. That right hand which was broken by Yiqing Luo suddenly stretched out towards her. A black airflow revolved around his broken arm. A piece of white bone suddenly popped out from the broken arm. The tip of the bone was extremely sharp, like a sharp blade, giving off a faint cold glint. On the white bone, there was a sinister qi revolving around it. "Yiqing Luo, stop acting mysterious. I'd like to see what kind of waves an ant like you can stir up." Yuzun gritted his teeth as he gave a low growl. He didn't believe that Yiqing Luo had suddenly undergone such a huge change. An ant was an ant. How could he possibly die in the hands of an ant? Lil Luo, Although Dmo Xian knew about Yiqing Luo's current condition, he didn't need to worry. But when he saw Yuzun's attack nearing, his body's instincts had already driven him to fly towards Yiqing Luo. His long arm stretched out as he pulled the young lady into his embrace. With a backhand, he struck out a palm in an attempt to block Yuzun's attack. But before he could even raise his hand, the girl's soft little hand had already rested on his arm, and she slowly pressed his hand down. Tightly, the young lady's one hand encircled his waist. The other hand, which was holding the electric ball, moved slightly. The electric ball in her hand turned into a bolt of lightning as it smashed down from Yuzun's head. The electric current revolved around Yuzun's body. Lightning flashed, emitting sizzling sounds. "Oh!" The electric current wrapped around the dark prime, causing his entire body to be numb and charred. He fell to the ground, his limbs twitching. The electric current on his body was still faintly visible. Nobody appreciated the Nether Prime's miserable state. After throwing the electric ball, the young girl had already turned her head, a sweet smile hanging on the corner of her mouth. Her pair of charming eyes were also filled with warmth. She wrapped one arm around the man's waist. After throwing the electric ball, she retracted her other hand and placed it on the man's chest. She lifted her eyes and met his gaze. In her star-like eyes, it was as if a pool of spring water had been disturbed, overflowing with youth, enchanting and seductive. "My man, you should rest after being injured." The girl's clear and sweet voice was as gentle as water. Suddenly, she wrapped her arms around his neck. She carefully avoided his injured shoulder. Their breaths were very close. The young lady's clear and hoarse voice was filled with a faint smile. "You've protected me for so long. As my man, you should also enjoy the feeling of being protected by me." Dmo Xian's pupils reflected the young lady's devastatingly beautiful looks. Seeing that he didn't speak, Yiqing Luo's gentle smile became even more obvious. She tipped her toes and her moist pink lips imprinted on the man's lips. A very light touch. She pulled the distance between their lips. Then she said, "Be good, listen to me." Chapter 3781. Yu Venerable felt that it was inconceivable. This was the first time he met someone who dared to use such a tone to speak to Dmo Xian. But that man looked as though he was enjoying it. Even the lines on his cold, hard, and elegant face softened. There was even a hint of a smile on his rosy lips. His entire person seemed to be as gentle as jade. Yu Venerable's mind flashed past 3 words: little, pretty, face. That's right. Dmo Xian's current look was really like a little man who relied on his own wife's protection. After being pacified by his own wife, then he became obedient and docile. If Dmo Xian knew what Yu Venerable was thinking right now, he would definitely express delightfully, enjoying the taste of his own wife's protection, not bad. Whereas, after the pacification, Yiqing Luo, who saw the man smile, let go of Dmo Xian's waist. She took a few steps back, slightly tilting her head. Her blood-red eyes flashed with a flirtatious red glow. Her pink lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly. "Wait for me." Smiling sweetly, the young lady's figure flashed past. Her fiery red dress was like a blooming rose, gorgeous beyond compare. In a blink of an eye, that fiery figure had already appeared in front of Yu Venerable. She squinted her eyes slightly as her lips curled into a smile, ridiculing as she looked down at Yu Venerable, who was twitching from time to time. Yu Venerable's heart trembled as he curled his body and moved backwards. He moved. Along with the wind, a burnt smell floated over. "You, who on earth are you? Why do you know the thunderclap arts?" That is. Yu Venerable's eyes widened as his eyes were filled with fear and shock. The electric current flowing on his body. It made his consciousness even clearer. This was the thunderclap arts. The incantation which had disappeared for thousands of years, it was rumored. The thunderclap arts which hid the god's sovereign secret. It actually appeared here. And appeared on this young lady. No wonder. No wonder. His Lord Father had spent a lot of effort to deal with Yiqing Luo several times, and it wasn't without reason. Previously he only thought that this Yiqing Luo had obtained a bit of good fortune from Dmo Xian, hence she was able to turn misfortune into blessing, avoiding his Lord Father's plot. Now it looked like this lady was definitely not an ordinary person. He found it strange. For a person like Dmo Xian, How could he possibly take a fancy to an ordinary girl who only had looks but no ability at all? Everything was because this woman was hiding a huge secret. Prime suppressed the surging shock in his heart as his eyes stared intently at Yiqing Luo, trying to imprint Yiqing Luo's looks into his mind. He was also desperately searching in his heart. Information regarding Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo, who was getting impatient from his stare, raised her brows. Her blood-colored eyes were filled with ridicule and ridicule. Who am I? Don't you know? Didn't you come to the land for me? She took a small step forward. Venerable was so shocked that his face turned pale. She smiled. As for why I know the thunderclap technique, there's no reason, because the thunderclap technique itself belongs to me. No, impossible. Yuzun opened his mouth to deny without any hesitation as his eyes stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. You're not Yiqing Luo, you're absolutely not Yiqing Luo. Who on earth are you? Yiqing Luo laughed happily. A cold arc appeared between his brows. Chapter 3782. Yuzun's pupils constricted under the pressure. His distorted face was flushed with an abnormal shade of red. His emotions had become exceptionally crazy. He shook his head as he forcefully supported his battered and exhausted body as he slowly shifted out of the range of Yiqing Luo's pressure. Fresh blood streaked across his body, leaving behind a blood-colored mark. Blood kept gushing out of the wound on his severed arm. He totally didn't notice it. He only stared at Yiqing Luo in shock. He was still mumbling, "No, impossible. Thunderclap arts can't be yours. This is impossible, you're not Yiqing Luo, you're not." The young lady gave a cold laugh as her pink lips curled upwards, as though she was ridiculing Yuzun's incompetence. Her fingertips moved. Electric currents flowed and formed an electric ball in her palm. The electric ball shone with a dazzling radiance. It caused one's eyes to have a crystal-like splendor. That electric ball was extremely beautiful. But it was filled with a shocking murderous intent. Yuzun's eyes widened as his expression contorted malevolently. That electric ball, in the eyes of outsiders, was a colorful and beautiful light ball. But he was very clear. This electric ball, as compared to the electric ball which landed on him earlier, was much stronger. If this electric ball came down, he would absolutely lose his life. If he didn't remember wrongly, the thunderclap arts which the young lady displayed, had at least reached the standard of thunderclap arts 5th level and above. Yuzun stared at Yiqing Luo unwillingly, in an attempt to find any flaw from Yiqing Luo. He couldn't believe it. A young lady who looked to be 15 to 16 years old. To be able to refine that once world-shocking secret art, thunderclap arts to 5th level and above. Especially when the thunderclap arts had been lost for thousands of years. But when that electric ball which was filled with electric current landed on him, a swish sound was heard. The numbness from the electric current started to spread to every corner of his body. He only felt a dull pain in his internal organs and a heart-wrenching feeling, as though his internal organs were being torn apart by the electric current. He could even smell the burnt smell coming from his body. Wave after wave of electric current made his consciousness a little scattered. No. He was the noble Yuzun. He was his father's favorite son. He was the future master of the gloomy palace. Everything here would belong to him. How could he? How could he be defeated by a woman? He didn't want to die like this. He absolutely did not want to die. The Nether Prime's heart was roaring, screaming, and venting. However, he could feel the electric shock coming from his body and the buzzing sound of the electric current beside his ears. There was despair everywhere, idiot. Just as the Dark Lord's consciousness was about to dissipate and his vision was about to turn black, Suddenly, an extremely dignified and cold reprimanding voice sounded beside his ear. That voice was like a clear spring in the desert, like a withered tree coming to life in the spring. It caused the Dark Lord to have a moment of clarity before his death, trying his best to widen his eyes. Lord Father, he opened his mouth, but what came out was only a soundless stream of air. You disappoint me too much. That cold and treacherous voice made people shiver. Venerable Yu's consciousness was in a daze. His breathing was tight as he tried his best to open his eyes. Save me. Save me, that voice was heavy for a moment. Venerable Yu anxiously wanted to find traces of his father. But he felt weak all over and totally couldn't muster up any strength. Chapter 3783. Yuzun cried out in his heart. But he didn't get any response. His heart sank bit by bit. Despair corroded his body and mind. Just at this moment, he suddenly felt an extremely powerful and majestic energy surging into his body. That energy was like a scorching inferno, burning him. But Yuzun didn't feel any pain. Instead, his eyes suddenly opened wide. His pupils were filled with ecstasy. The inferno in his body was burning, as though it was going to swallow him up completely. He wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he propped up the last bit of consciousness in his body, as he speedily absorbed the surging inferno. The faster the energy was absorbed, Yuzun's consciousness became clearer. Even the pain in his body and his internal organs from being struck by the thunderclap art seemed to have turned into ashes under this inferno. This was his father's energy. His father hadn't given up on him. Yuzun was overjoyed as he greedily absorbed the endless energy. The inferno that gathered in his body was restoring his body. After Yiqing Luo threw that electric ball, she suddenly had a moment of dizziness. Her petite body swayed slightly. Not knowing if it was an illusion or something. She actually felt a faint stabbing pain in her limbs and bones, one after another. A very minute-piercing pain. So minute that, she wasn't sure if that piercing pain existed or not. She had just moved. Her body was brought into someone's embrace. The familiar breath made the anxiety and uneasiness in Yiqing Luo's heart stop. Even the piercing pain, which she wasn't able to tell if it was an illusion or real, also disappeared. She closed her eyes as her head rested on Dmo Xian's shoulder. Her breathing was slightly light. Yiqing Luo didn't notice the changes in her body. But the man who was standing by the side, enjoying the feeling of his wife's protection, was staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking, taking in all the minute changes in her emotions. Naturally, he also saw Yiqing Luo's frowning slender brows from time to time. Dmo Xian hugged the person in his arms. He felt that the person in his arms was as light as a feather, as though it was an illusion. His brows creased slightly. This feeling made him extremely displeased. But when he lowered his eyes to look at the alluring face of the person in his arms, his usually calm and indifferent face suddenly tensed up. Even his usually emotionless peach blossom eyes were surging with raging waves. Instinctively, he tightened his arms around himself. Little Luo, he opened his mouth and called out her name. His voice was a little bitter. Yiqing Luo didn't open her eyes and only responded with a faint "hen" as her brows were filled with fatigue. Dmo Xian's thin lips moved. But in the end, he didn't say anything. He only pulled her closer to his embrace. The young girl's aura was so majestic that it made him feel even more pressured, and it lingered around her body in a chaotic manner. It seemed like it was about to dissipate. However, he was hesitant. But what worried Dmo Xian was the girl's originally bright and beautiful face was now as pale as a sheet of paper. It was especially so for those originally pink and tender lips, which were now devoid of any color. Not only that, the girl's aura was very chaotic. It was as if the dark force in his body had been disrupted, and he had lost his overall goal. He was like a headless fly, scurrying around randomly. This situation, generally speaking, that was the tendency of going into chi deviation. It was because the energy which little Luo had expended earlier. Chapter 3784. Cough. A light cough sounded in Dmo Xian's mind. Dmo Xian's eyes turned cold as he quickly found the source of that voice. So shocked that the voice coughed a few more times. Dmo Xian, it's me. It's me. The voice was familiar, causing the chill in Dmo Xian's eyes to recede slightly. Old Man Song. This voice sounded like that spiritual elder beside Lil Luo. Old Man Song, in order to prevent himself from being accidentally injured again, replied repeatedly, yes, it's me. Dmo Xian kid, don't make a move just because you don't agree, this old man's old bones can't withstand your torment. What's the matter? Dmo Xian's brows furrowed slightly. The spiritual elder in Lil Luo's azure dew bracelet deliberately avoided Lil Luo, and secretly communicated with his spirit magnetic field. This made Dmo Xian's heart have a feeling of unease. Cough. You've also seen Luo Lass's current situation. Old Man Song spoke carefully. Dmo Xian replied. Old Man Song said, Luo Lass suddenly exploded with such power, do you know the reason? Dmo Xian's shimmering eyes flashed slightly, he lowered his eyes and answered, I know. How could he not know? Yu Zun used her as a bargaining chip. Not only did he injure him, he also humiliated him. His Lil Luo, must have pushed all the responsibility to herself, thinking that all this was because of her. Because she was worried about him. Because she wanted to protect him. So, the suppressed power in her body, and those divine weapons that were connected to her profound jade heart, all had a reaction. This was just like before, when she forcefully used the power of the divine weapons, overloading her body. Just that this time. It was the kind of strong intention that she wanted to protect him. It drove some kind of power in her body. It caused the power in her body to rebel, to the point where it could not be stopped. Actually, your guess is not entirely correct. Old Man Song sighed, his tone somewhat helpless. I think you should have seen through Luo Lass. Her identity. Dmo Xian remained silent for a long while before spitting out a word, Old Man Song said, ever since she was young, she was treated as trash by others. It wasn't because she was a so-called trash, nor was it because her meridians were truly the meridians of trash. To be more accurate, she wasn't trash. It was just that there was a seal placed within her body. A seal that completely sealed away her power. Dmo Xian wasn't surprised as he replied indifferently, so. Right now, what she is consuming is not the protective consciousness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, nor is it the power of the divine artifact. Old Man Song's voice became increasingly deep. She's gradually awakening. Awaken. Dmo Xian's expression finally had a slight change. What do you mean? Her willpower and mental strength has exceeded this old man's expectations. Her willpower caused the seal in her body to create a gap. Old Man Song's voice deepened as he continued, this body of hers has not undergone a true cleansing of the marrow and bones. Generally speaking, it can only be considered as a mortal body. Once the seal is removed, her power will awaken. And this awakening does not come from her hard work step by step, and self-improvement. This consequence, you should be very clear. Dmo Xian's pupils suddenly contracted. The arms that encircled the young girl's delicate body also unconsciously tightened. N. Yiqing Luo's brows twisted in pain. Chapter 3785. What's the matter? Yiqing Luo's voice was soft, filled with exhaustion. Dmo Xian immediately relaxed the strength of his arm, his thin lips curled up slightly as he shook his head. Nothing. Yiqing Luo's head was just about to bury into his chest when she suddenly recalled that he had been injured by Yuzun previously, as she instantly stopped her actions. She raised her head, her tired eyelids trembling, but she stubbornly did not lean on the man's chest. That heart-wrenching look made Dmo Xian's lips curl up silently. His large palm covered her head and pressed her into his embrace. It's just a small injury, it's not enough for me to not be able to carry my Xiao Luo. Your injury. Yiqing Luo wanted to move away. However, the man's low and hoarse voice floated down from above her head. If you move around and touch my wound, it will be terrible if it splits open. At that moment, the girl obediently nestled in his arms, not moving at all. Dmo Xian stroked the young lady's back in satisfaction as he circled her in his arms. This episode made Dmo Xian attempt to communicate with Old Man Song in his mind. Old Man Song's mental strength had already withdrawn from his magnetic field. His eyes slightly darkened, and the words that Old Man Song had just said surfaced in his mind. You should be very clear about the consequences of awakening her power. He lowered his eyes and looked at the girl in his arms. Power, awakening. That power was so strong that it made him feel even more pressured. Was this the power that she had awakened after removing the seal? Perhaps, very soon, his little Luo heir would really be able to walk side by side with him. Just when the atmosphere was right. Suddenly, the girl in his arms opened her eyes. His blood-red eyes shone with a bewitching and evil light. There was no sign of fatigue on his face. The sudden change in imposing manner made the tenderness between Dmo Xian's brows vanish instantly. Before he could ask, the girl in his arms had already raised her hand and pressed on his uninjured shoulder. Then, the petite figure nimbly and gracefully leapt out of his embrace. Her lips curled up, and the light in her eyes became even more charming. In the blink of an eye, a blazing feather fan appeared at her fingertips. She waved it casually. The ghastly flame fan swept up thousands of wind waves and rapidly surged forward. The dazzling red light was like a sea of fire. Wisps of profound energy were like a flame tongue baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, devouring everything in front of it. Dying struggle. The girl's clear voice was filled with killing intent. His 5 fingers quickly spun the glowing flame fan. The silver threads were like a spider's web, scattering in all directions like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. They were densely packed, like a giant net that covered the sky and covered the earth. Oh! A muffled groan sounded in the surging waves of fire. The silver threads had already wrapped around the person who had stood up at some point in time. Yiqing Luo moved her fingers. The silver threads quickly retracted and wrapped around the man. The red light gradually dissipated. The silhouette of that person was revealed in the silver threads. His entire body was charred black. The clothes on his body were charred and he was in a sorry state. His hair, as messy as a madman's, also exuded a strong burnt smell. Wasn't that the Dark Lord who had been struck twice by the thunderclap art? Dmo Xian followed closely to Yiqing Luo's side as he narrowed his peach blossom eyes and looked at Yuzun, his aura. Yiqing Luo nodded. The aura on Yuzun was totally different from before. Previously when she just met him, it wasn't as gloomy and strange as now. The current Yuzun was enveloped in a layer of black qi which could be seen with the naked eye. Chapter 3786. Especially the look in his eyes. Sinister and vengeful, filled with black qi. This Yuzun was obviously much harder to deal with than before. Dmo Xian only took a look at Yuzun before his gaze returned back to Yiqing Luo. He met Yiqing Luo's blood-red eyes as a sliver of worry flashed past his eyes. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly as her long and narrow eyes curved slightly. The corners of her eyes rose upwards, looking devilishly alluring. She raised up a finger as she placed it on Dmo Xian's thin lips. I know what you want to say, but please believe me and hand him over to me. Her tone was firm and her voice was gentle, as though she was discussing what to eat today calmly, without any fluctuations or ups and downs. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian frowned as his eyes were filled with disapproval. Yiqing Luo shook her head at him. Immediately after, she glanced sideways as she looked at Yuzun. A glint of bloodthirsty malevolence flashed past her eyes. He made use of me to hurt you and humiliate you. Her pink lips parted slightly as she spat out every single word. Her voice was like frozen snow. I want to personally send him to hell. Dmo Xian's eyes were gradually tainted with a sliver of warmth. If she said she wasn't touched, that was absolutely fake. Her heart, a certain soft spot seemed to have been hit hard. His eyes deepened as his peach blossom eyes gazed deeply at the young lady's chilly side view. Looking at the young lady's countenance, it was filled with malevolence for him. His Adam's apple moved as his voice was slightly deep. All right, I'll watch you send him to hell. Perhaps she sensed the man's scorching gaze. Yiqing Luo turned back. The expression on her face had already turned gentle. She had just glanced sideways. The man had already encircled her slender waist as he pulled her into his embrace. A warm kiss landed on the young lady's lips. Yiqing Luo was stunned as her body immediately softened. She heard the man's low and hoarse voice filled with worry. Don't force yourself. If you're tired, then stop. Yiqing Luo smiled as she nodded. After the two of them separated, Yiqing Luo's figure moved as she approached Yuzun. At the same time, in Dmo Xian's mind, an indistinct electric wave floated and old man Song's anxious and worried voice sounded, Overlord, why didn't you stop her? Her body can't take it. Dmo Xian's gaze was fixated on Yiqing Luo's figure without blinking. His gaze was very gentle. Do you think I can stop her? He chuckled. It was hard to tell whether he was happy, worried, or both. Old man Song fell silent. That's right, if Luo Yu decided on something, who could stop her? Especially when it concerned Dmo Xian. Old man Song. Dmo Xian suddenly called out. Even if old man Song could not see Dmo Xian, she could also feel that Dmo Xian's gaze towards Yiqing Luo had turned even gentler. What she wants to do, I will not interfere. Dmo Xian's voice was very low, and I believe in her. He paused slightly, and his voice also became a lot gentler. Taking a step back, there's still me behind her. When old man Song heard this, his entire spirit body froze. He knew Dmo Xian's feelings for Yiqing Luo. He also knew how sincere the feelings between the both of them were. But he had not expected Dmo Xian would have such an understanding towards Yiqing Luo. Moreover, he was wholeheartedly for Yiqing Luo, and his plans were very clear. To satisfy Yiqing Luo's thoughts. And also to be her backing, protecting Yiqing Luo's safety. That's right. This man cared about Yiqing Luo more than anyone else. Chapter 3787. He would follow Yiqing Luo's thoughts. To let Yiqing Luo fight in her current state. He would definitely be behind her, building the most solid fortress for her, to protect her. The most important point is. Dmo Xian suddenly opened his mouth, His voice was low and hoarse, mellow like wine. She needs this kind of growth method. Old Man Tsang was suddenly enlightened. So the Overlord had agreed so readily, he had already calculated everything in his heart. In the vast starry sky, profound rays shot out in all directions. Yuzun, who was covered by the huge silver silk net, stared fiercely at the red-robed young lady in front of him who was pressing down. The young lady was extremely languid as she landed lightly a few steps away from him. She raised her hand gently. Her every action was elegant and languid. Her slender fingers pinched that glower flame fan. She shook her hand. The silver silk which was entangled on Yuzun's body tightened. Yuzun howled in pain. His voice was thick, like a wild beast howling. All the muscles on his body tightened as he struggled. The black qi which was emitted from his body became thicker and thicker. The evil qi gradually rose, making Yi Qing Luo squint at her eyes. She slowly took a step back. Which was the time to take a step back? Roar! The Nether Primes suddenly roared out. Blood shot out from his body. The densely packed silver silk actually bounced back from his body. But, following the instant the silver silk bounced back, his body also started to bleed profusely. The strong force and the aftershock from the rebound made Yi Qing Luo stagger 2 steps back from the impact. The viscous liquid also splattered towards Yi Qing Luo's face. At such a close distance, Yi Qing Luo could clearly see that the blood which Yuzun splattered contained traces of evil qi. Even the blood that splashed out from his body was dyed black. She frowned. She raised her hand and used the glower flame fan to draw an arc. It blocked the black blood water. The blood splattered and landed on the ground of the vast starry sky. It seemed as though it had a corrosive ability. The ground was corroded, forming many small pits. This made Yi Qing Luo slightly surprised. Not only did the Nether Prime's entire person change, but his aura and power also underwent a huge change. Even his blood seemed to have changed. This was Ah Xian's consciousness space. His blood could even corrode the ground of this space. This Nether Prime, could it be that he used some so-called dark forbidden technique to transform himself? Judging from Onyo Palace's character, Yi Qing Luo expressed that it was highly possible. You want to trap me? Heh, dream on. After Yuzun broke free from the restraints, he concealed himself ruthlessly. The killing intent in his heart was overflowing. His 5 fingers turned into a claw and like a flash in the void, he attacked towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo, you can't win me, you can't win me. The Nether Prime's emotions were clearly not right. His eyes were filled with crazed killing intent. There was only one thought in his mind, that was to kill Yi Qing Luo. In front of Dmo Xian, he brutally tortured Yi Qing Luo to death. That intense killing intent was sinister and strange. The attack from the 5 fingers caused profound energy to surge violently like stormy waves. Facing this menacing attack, Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly as her blood-colored eyes seemed to outline a bewitching flame flower, which was exceptionally evil. Oh. Really? You can try. The young lady's voice was lazy and filled with ridicule. As though she totally didn't put you prime in her eyes. That arrogant attitude caused the Netherlord's eyes to turn even redder. Chapter 3788. Boundless and terrifying profound energy poured down along with the Netherlord's claw. It carried with it an endless amount of evil energy. A hurricane rose, the air and the space shook along with it. The ferocious attack was already approaching him head-on. The girl didn't even have a chance to dodge. The Netherlord's eyes surged with madness, the corners of his mouth curled into a crazy smile. This slut will definitely die. The power of this claw could definitely tear her everything. Bang! The Netherlord's claw landed. Air waves surged. In the air, a deep black mark was swept open. The air waves surged, the powerful and majestic aura rippled in the air, drawing circles of ripples. Ha ha ha. You're dead. The Netherlord laughed loudly as he pulled his hand out of the deep pit on the ground. Blood dripped down and covered his arm. He didn't notice it at all. The bloody hand was extremely similar to the hand that had been broken. He laughed crazily. The black energy in his eyes surged like a whirlpool. Suddenly, a cold and enchanting laughter, melodious and sweet, like pearls falling on a plate, entered his ears. Who are you saying died? That clear voice shouted with thick mockery. Oh. Is it you? After the Netherlord heard this voice, his smile instantly froze on his face. He opened his eyes wide, overflowing with hostility. Following the voice, he looked over. Then he saw that the girl who should have died under his claw was actually smiling faintly at the side not far from him. She was alive. There were no signs of injuries on her body. He was stunned, turning his head back in disbelief to look at the huge pit where the claw landed. The profound wave dispersed. It was empty in front of him. You deserve to die. The Netherlord was unable to restrain his anger, his entire face distorted to the extreme. He raised that bloody hand again. Boom boom boom. The air vibrated, the space shook violently. The dark light rolled, and the evil Yin-Chi danced wildly like a flood. TSK, where are you hitting? The girl's voice sounded from the other side. The Netherlord became even crazier, his entire face flushed red, his eyes bloodshot from anger, incomparably scarlet. He crazily released his berserk profound energy in all directions. However, every time it looked like it was about to hit its target. Or, when he attacked at close range and was about to grab the girl's vitals. The young lady in front of him would instantly melt into the air and disappear without a trace. Once, twice, thrice, this was definitely not a coincidence. When the last attack once again failed to hit its target, Yishuan's eyes widened. Yuzun was already panting heavily, stumbling as he stood there. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Yiqing Luo with hatred and unwillingness. In an attempt to find a trace of injury on Yiqing Luo's body. But, no matter how unwilling he was. The young girl stood there in a carefree manner, like a fairy from the 9 heavens, unreachable, and worthy of respect. In fact, under wave after wave of ferocious attacks, the heavenly demon sect's Grand Monarch Palace's Grand Monarch Palace's Grand Monarch Palace's Grand Monarch he was panting heavily, having almost used up all of his strength. However, the young girl's expression did not change. He didn't seem to be affected at all. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Nether Prime roared agitatedly, his expression extremely hideous. They had all received help from their father. How could he possibly not be Yiqing Luo's match? How could she possibly avoid his attacks? No. Wrong. In Nether Prime's mind, the scene of the young girl disappearing into thin air suddenly surfaced one after another of his attacks. Chapter 3789. Blink Movement Secret Arts. Thunderclap Arts. These two were secret arts from thousands of years ago which caused people to tremble in fear. This lady not only knew how to execute the 5th level and above of Thunderclap Arts. She even knew the Blink Movement Secret Arts. Surely she wasn't. Yuzun's complexion turned pale as he stared at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Surely you aren't proficient in the 5 Ghost Secret Arts. 5 Ghost Secret Arts. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her face was filled with ridicule. What's that? Yuzun's face kept twitching as he couldn't tell if Yiqing Luo was intentionally hiding it or she really didn't know. His heart felt as if it was being strangled by something. There was a suffocating feeling. If Yiqing Luo really knew the 5 ghost secret arts, he absolutely had no chance of winning. Yiqing Luo naturally saw the fear and unwillingness in Yuzun's eyes. She could also tell that Yuzun had a strong urge to kill her, but under the awe of the blink movement secret arts and thunderclap arts, he didn't dare to act rashly. She was very curious about the 5 ghost secret art that the Nether Prime mentioned. What on earth was that? What did it have to do with the blink movement secret arts and thunderclap arts? It could actually make Yuzun's fear win over his insanity and not be like before, blindly attacking her and wanting to kill her. She still remembered. Previously, when she was cultivating in the Purgatory Tower, after she obtained the blink movement secret arts and thunderclap arts, Old Man Tsang had been instructing her not to use these secret arts in front of outsiders. Later on, the Dark Forces, or Ghost Doctor, Thief God, etc., when they saw her using the blink movement secret arts, they all displayed interest and shock. Could it be? This was the reward which she obtained from the Purgatory Tower. Great, it was one of the 5 ghost secret arts. But, what did this so-called 5 ghost secret arts mean? Why did it make Yuzun so fearful? After the Earth Realm's matter was over, she would definitely ask Old Man Tsang, what on earth was this so-called 5 ghost secret arts? Yuzun suddenly cried out in pain. The evil yin qi which enveloped him became more and more rampant. Not knowing if it was Yiqing Luo's misperception or Yuzun's scream was too terrifying. Yiqing Luo somehow felt that the evil yin qi seemed to be gnawing on Yuzun's body. It was as if it wanted to completely devour the Nether Prime and fuse it into evil yin energy. The Nether Prime fell to the ground, his entire body showing an extremely difficult to bend, twitching non-stop. The dense black aura rapidly swept over him, causing his twisted face to contort into a mess. The rampaging black qi made Yiqing Luo take a few steps back. She frowned slightly. This guy, is he really going to be devoured by the evil yin qi? She remembered that Yu Ji addressed this person as Lord Young Master. Moreover, that respectful manner of hers. Obviously, his status in the Nether Palace was second only to the Palace Master. The evil yin qi could actually devour him. Just as Yiqing Luo was making all sorts of guesses in her mind. Shrouded in black gas, the Nether Venerable, who was screaming incessantly, suddenly burst forth with a domineering and majestic aura. Then, a black figure shrouded in black gas leaped into the air. Like a cannonball, he spun a few rounds in the air. Then, it landed heavily on the ground. Ah! That black figure roared a few times as he opened up his arms and a raging profound energy exploded. With the momentum of swallowing the mountains and rivers, it shot out in all directions. The black gas surged wildly, giving off an extremely oppressive feeling. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted. Under this powerful qi strength, the Heavenly Dragon King's body shook. Chapter 3790. Yiqing Luo frowned, her fingertips immediately spread open the glower flame fan. The red glow that rose up blocked all the dense black energy that was surging over. Strong qi danced wildly, the air waves were monstrous, the hurricane whistled. Even under the protection of the glower flame fan, that strong hurricane still blew Yiqing Luo's hair and red robe, fluttering loudly. The strong sense of oppression seemed to be crushing the condensed aura in front of her. Yiqing Luo's arms faintly felt a little numb. And on the other side, after Yiqing Luo was sucked into the vortex, the auction was in ruins. Zhou Mo, Gue Wu, and the rest, led hundreds of strange beasts, almost swallowed the so-called corpse puppet Gu. Everyone was already exhausted, but did not dare to easily relax their vigilance. Even the entire auction couldn't see the existence of the corpse puppet Gu. But no one knew from which corner a worm would suddenly jump out. After all, the corpse puppet goo was too small. Even the strange beasts might not be able to take care of every corpse puppet goo. Everyone gathered together, staring intently at the surroundings. At this time, they could only choose to believe each other, only choose to unite. Qiao Yinyan panted lightly, leaning on the side to rest, his eyes looking around. Pei Xing quietly handed him a bottle from behind, asked, "Worried about All Luo?" Qiao Yinyan took the bottle, glanced at Pei Xing and pursed his lips, "Yes. This is the medicinal pill All Luo gave me before, to replenish my energy. Eat it carefully, don't let others see." Pei Xing glanced around with the corner of his dark golden eyes, sneered, and said, "Don't think that those people are on our side now. They might be harboring evil thoughts in their hearts. If they find out that we have pills in our hands, they will definitely fight amongst themselves." What Pei Xing said was indeed right. After a few rounds of fighting in this auction, all the cultivators were already physically and mentally exhausted. If they knew that they had medicinal pills in their hands, those people would definitely go crazy to snatch it. Qiao Yinyan used Pei Xing as a cover and swallowed a medicinal pill. Then he raised his eyebrows and glanced at Pei Xing. "TSK, after Brother Pei's profound grade broke out, even your brain became smart." When am I not smart?" Pei Xing bumped Qiao Yinyan's shoulder. After Qiao Yinyan swallowed the pill, his complexion looked slightly better. He looked around again and sighed, "Ah Luo, when will she come back?" With the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion's master by Ah Luo's side and Azure Dragon, Ah Luo will definitely be fine. Pei Xing comforted. Moreover, Ah Luo is not the kind of woman who can be defeated easily. We should believe in her. Qiao Yinyan looked at the ruins in front of him. The strength of the other party has already surpassed our expectations. Furthermore, I don't trust that Scarlet Clarity Pavilion's master. Pei Xing's eyes widened. "I say, Brother Qiao. Don't tell me you're really interested in All Luo. Why does your tone sound like you're jealous of the Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion lord?" As soon as Pei Xing finished speaking, Qiao Yinyan suddenly looked up. His silver hair floated along with his energy, covering half of his face. However, Pei Xing could still see the displeasure and coldness in his eyes. Pei Xing keenly sensed something and shrank back a little. While he was racking his brains, trying to break the stalemate, Qiao Yinyan suddenly looked into the distance again. It was as if his actions and the look in his eyes had never happened at all. Chapter 3791. He even raised his hand and poked Qiao Yinyan with his finger. Qiao Yinyan didn't even bat an eyelid. Pei Xing moved closer to him. Are you for real?" He paused and carefully looked at Qiao Yinyan's face. Then he coughed lightly. "Brother Pei, don't forget that All Luo has a fiancé, and that fiancé is the Overlord." At this point, he paused for a moment. He carefully looked at Qiao Yinyan's face again. Seeing that Qiao Yinyan's expression didn't change much, he poked Qiao Yinyan again. "Let's not talk about the identity of All Luo's fiancé. Just look at the way All Luo looks at the Overlord, and the atmosphere between them." Pei Xing seemed to recall the scene not long ago. He retracted his hand and rubbed his arm. It's obvious that no one can interfere with their relationship. "Brother Pei, don't even think about," before he could finish his sentence. Qiao Yinyan, who had been looking into the distance with his silver hair covering half of his face, suddenly turned his head. His deep eyes were devoid of any emotion. He calmly and deeply looked at Pei Xing. Pei Xing was startled by the look in his eyes, and the last word was stuck in his throat. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something. But when he saw Qiao Yinyan's hungry eyes, he swallowed his words. His brother Pei, it seemed that his attitude towards All Luo had been different from the beginning. Even his own sister, Xiao Yulu, was cold and indifferent. But when it came to All Luo, he was always protecting her, as if he couldn't bear to see All Luo get hurt or wronged. Could it be, his brother Pei was deeply in love with All Luo? Immediately, Pei Xing's mind was filled with a melodramatic drama. He looked at Xiao Yinyan with pity, sympathy, and helplessness. "Why are you staring at me?" Xiao Yinyan frowned. This seemingly silly brother of his was giving him a headache. Before they got to know each other, his impression of Pei Xing was, the boss of the Gathering Treasures Exchange, a weak and useless person who couldn't even protect the family business left by his ancestors and only knew how to dream. After they became familiar with each other, after learning about the cause and effect of the treasure gathering, he also learned about Pei Xing's character. Xiao Yinyan expressed his opinion that Pei Xing was really stupid. He was so stupid that he didn't know how to act according to the mood of others. Couldn't they tell that he was in a bad mood? Couldn't he see that he didn't want to answer his question? However, Pei Xing had to ask again and again. What kind of gaze was she using to look at him in the end? Pei Xing, who was unaware of Xiao Yinyan's thoughts, said sincerely, "I really feel sorry for you, Brother Pei. Your love rivals are all so powerful. If it's not the pavilion master of the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion, then it's the legendary Lord Dizun. How are you going to compete?" Before Pei Xing could finish his words, suddenly, a force of gravity came from his shoulder. His whole body fell backward. His back touched the ground. The gravel burned his body, and it stung a little. Pei Xing frowned and struggled. However, the elbow on his chest was so strong that he couldn't get up at all. Chapter 3792. Pei Xing fell to the ground. His chest was pressed against Xiao Yinyan's elbow. Almost half of Xiao Yinyan's body was leaning over Pei Xing. His silver hair fell on Pei Xing's cheek. It made him feel itchy. Pei Xing was not used to such close proximity. Especially, before he could finish his sentence, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Xiao Yinyan suddenly lowered his head. That cold face was reflected in Pei Xing's eyes at such a close distance. His silver hair almost fell on Pei Xing's face. The distance between them was so close that Pei Xing could almost feel Xiao Yinyan's breath on his face. Only now did Pei Xing realize in shock that the distance between the two of them had already exceeded his imagination. Wait, isn't there something wrong with this posture? He was a man. How could a man like him be pressed to the ground by his brother Pei? Pei Xing hurriedly raised his hand to stop Xiao Yinyan's chest. Brother Pei. But how could he defeat Xiao Yinyan with his strength? Xiao Yinyan didn't move Xiao Yinyan at all. Xiao Yinyan maintained his posture as steady as a mountain. At such a close distance, his deep eyes gazed at him deeply. Pei Xing felt goosebumps. You're willing to shut up? Xiao Yinyan said indifferently. His voice was cold and indifferent. Pei Xing's lips moved as if he wanted to say something. But looking at Xiao Yinyan's eyes and the close distance, he could only maintain his stiff body and shut his mouth. Xiao Yinyan raised his lips in satisfaction. Then can you let go of me now? Pei Xing felt that the position of two grown men, one lying down and the other pressing down, was really too much for his eyes. He couldn't accept it. What he got in response was an almost inaudible sneer. Pei Xing didn't have time to react. Suddenly, Xiao Yinyan lowered his head. His chin was on Pei Xing's shoulder. Xiao Yinyan's lips were very close to Pei Xing's skin. So close that Pei Xing's face was distorted in shock. Pei Xing couldn't bear it and wanted to struggle. The man's sneer drifted into her ears. My feelings for All Luo are not what you think. If you continue to talk nonsense, I will use my actions to prove it. When he said the last sentence, he deliberately moved closer to Pei Xing. That gentle breathing almost made Pei Xing collapse. The iron-willed straight man was about to go crazy. Of course he understood Qiao Yinyan's words. What kind of proof was that? Was he trying to prove that he, Qiao Yinyan, actually had a homosexual fetish? But fortunately, after Qiao Yinyan said this, he quickly distanced himself from Pei Xing. Pei Xing, who had regained his freedom, fled several steps away from Qiao Yinyan. It was as if a man from a good family had been molested. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at Qiao Yinyan in shock. The latter's face was calm, and he looked at him calmly. His thin lips moved slightly. Now, do you still say that I'm interested in Luo? No. No, no, no. No. Definitely not. Pei Xing was scared out of his wits and waved his hands quickly. The corner of Qiao Yinyan's mouth twitched with a faint smile, and his expression was somewhat mischievous. Many people at the side saw this scene. Everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment and shock as they looked at the two of them. I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that the two of you actually have that kind of relationship. A careless voice came from behind the two of them. Chapter 3793. The young man was dressed in a black brocade robe. Her jet black hair was casually tied into a bun. His hair was very messy. But it didn't give one a rude feeling at all. On the contrary, it made the young man look even more languid. The most eye-catching thing was the young man's pair of fox-like charming phoenix eyes. The corners of his eyes rose slightly. It even drew out a coquettish lotus pattern, which made the young man look even more charming like a fox. Qiao Yinyan took a look at that person. He remembered that Yiqing Luo called the young man's name earlier, young Master Mo. Zhou Mo narrowed his bewitching phoenix eyes and smiled wickedly. Young Master Qiao's secret has been discovered by this young master. Shouldn't young Master Qiao show some sincerity and seal this young master's mouth? Qiao Yinyan's expression didn't change as he chuckled lightly. Secret? What secret do I have? Zhou Mo sneakily glanced at Pei Xing before returning to him with a sneaky smile. Young Master Qiao forcefully suppressing a man from a good family. If this matter were to spread to someone's ears, what do you think she would think? Qiao Yinyan's expression finally had a slight change. His eyes moved slightly as the smile froze on his face. He opened his mouth and spat out a word. But he didn't know what to say. Looking at Qiao Yinyan's awkward expression, Zhou Mo laughed heartily. He laughed so much that he was like a flower branch that attracted the attention of others. Her peerless appearance was as charming as a fox, exuding a kind of soul-stirring charm. This smile caused many profounders to look over at him. Suddenly, a little black figure scurried over from the side. A little head squeezed in between the two of them. Kitty Lee widened her lively eyes as she stared at Qiao Yinyan and Zhou Mo. What are you guys talking about? What the hell is forcefully suppressing a man from a good family? What person? Who is that person? Do you know each other? Why doesn't Kitty know that you know each other? What's your relationship? A series of questions were like cannonballs, spitting out from Kitty Lee's mouth. The little wild cat's voice was soft and squeaky. Zhou Mo reached out and pulled Kitty Lee into his arms. He looked at Kitty Lee with a smile. Little wild cat, are you jealous? You've asked so many questions. Let me think, which one should I start with? You. Kitty Lee's face reddened, and she lifted her foot to step on his foot. Kitty Lee is not jealous. Kitty is curious. Zhou Mo's devilishly charming red phoenix eyes hooked. He lowered his head slightly and moved closer to Kitty Lee's ear, smiling wickedly. Curiosity killed the cat, Whoever dares to kill Kitty, Kitty will scratch him to death. Kitty Lee snorted. Zhou Mo's eyes flashed with another kind of unknown light, and he smiled even more wickedly. It's not that I can't satisfy your curiosity, but, since little Wildcat wants to know something from me, shouldn't you give me something else in exchange? Kitty Lee immediately widened her eyes, and her little claws fiercely scratched Zhou Mo's face. Zhou Mo chuckled as he dodged Kitty Lee's claws and grabbed her hand. Immediately, he hugged the little wildcat's waist and carried her in his arms. He ignored the intense struggle of the person in his arms, and looked sideways at Xiao Yinyan who had been staring at him and Kitty Lee, but his eyes were empty, not knowing what he was thinking about. He curled his lips. I've helped that old man Gui Yu to pass a message to you. Thank you for taking care of little Qing Luo in the Earth Boundary. He will also help you take good care of her. The last 5 words entered Xiao Yinyan's ears. Chapter 3794. Pei Xing noticed the change in Xiao Yinyan's mood. But he couldn't ask. Until Zhou Mo walked away with Kitty Lee in his arms. Pei Xing moved closer to Xiao Yinyan cautiously. But this time, it wasn't as casual as before. Instead, he took a small step and stared at Xiao Yinyan warily. He was afraid that Xiao Yinyan would press him to the ground again. He couldn't stand such humiliation. He moved closer. Xiao Yinyan didn't react at all. He kept his head down and clenched his fists. No one knew what he was thinking. Just now, were you trying to scare me? You lied to me. Actually, you have a girl you like. Pei Xing asked with wide eyes. Xiao Yinyan finally reacted. He glanced at him and lifted his eyelids. Stupid. He just spat out one word. Xiao Yinyan ignored Pei Xing. Pei Xing was stunned. How am I stupid? You suddenly pressed me to the ground and got so close. How could I not misunderstand? Xiao Yinyan let out a soft snort. Pei Xing heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing his attitude. He was relieved to know that Xiao Yinyan wasn't a man with a sexual fetish. At least he was safe. Pei Xing sat down next to Xiao Yinyan and began to gossip. Just now. Do you know that person? He helped someone to pass a message to you. Who is that ghost? And who is the girl you like? Xiao Yinyan ignored him. Pei Xing continued to ask, don't be shy. We're brothers. I can help you get the girl you like. Hey, you're doing it again. Before he could finish his words, his entire body was pressed to the ground again. Pei Xing struggled exaggeratedly and kept shouting. Xiao Yinyan moved closer to his ear and said in a low voice, before that, get your girl. Pei Xing stopped struggling, and his dark golden eyes flickered for a moment. Xiao Yinyan looked at his expression and sneered. Then he let go of him and stood up. Don't bother me. If you do, I won't just press you to the ground. Maybe it was because of what Xiao Yinyan said. Pei Xing's mood sank for a moment. He did not refute Xiao Yinyan's words. But at this moment, suddenly, the entire auction hall flashed with light. The almost pitch-black sky seemed to have split open a thin crack. The cultivators from the various powers couldn't help but raise their heads to look. The thin crack in the pitch-black sky seemed to have been forcefully torn open by a majestic force. Soon after, the tear turned into a vast starry sky. What is that? What's going on? Why did this thing appear out of nowhere? It's like, the sky is moving. All the profound practitioners stared fixedly at the sky, their faces filled with shock. Could it be? Could it be that the formation has been opened? Can we go out now? Is that the exit of the formation? We'll know once we get there. there seemed to be a glimmer of hope in everyone's hearts. One by one, they swarmed over and were about to fly up and break through the opening. That's not the exit. Just when everyone was overjoyed, suddenly, a cold and indifferent voice sounded out. Gue Wu looked in the direction of the sky with indifference. Look carefully. The profound practitioners, who had their hopes shattered by Gue Wu's words, were originally a little unhappy. But after hearing Gue Wu's words, Chapter 3795. Wait a minute, look. What is that? Someone in the crowd cried out in shock. Everyone turned their attention to it. The vast starry sky began to move bit by bit. Following that, they saw a vast and terrifying profound energy surging with monstrous waves. Everyone immediately cried out in alarm as they subconsciously formed a barrier in an attempt to stop the violent profound energy that was coming straight at them, but the profound energy shot out in all directions and the hurricane rolled. The entire vast starry sky was shaken by the attack. Such a terrifying aura. But no one sensed the slightest profound energy. And, the profound energy that splashed around didn't cause any harm to them. They couldn't even feel a trace of the hurricane. It was as if it was fake. Wait a minute. Fake. Everyone seemed to have understood something. Their eyes stared at the sky, at the vast starry sky that had split open. Sure enough, the next moment, the vast starry sky began to move bit by bit. Like a slow-motion camera, moving bit by bit. Finally, the crowd saw a petite figure standing in the middle of the hurricane. Her red dress was fluttering under the hurricane, her sleeves and skirt were fluttering wildly. That was Yi Qing Luo. Imperial Madam. What's going on? Why is Imperial Madam there? Is she in danger? How can it not be dangerous? Didn't you see? Imperial Madam's condition, she can't hold on any longer. What is that place? Why is Imperial Madam in danger? Qiao Yinyan, who had been silent, suddenly stood up when he heard the three words, Yi Qing Luo. His line of sight followed everyone's line of sight. In the pitch-black sky that had been torn apart, under the vast starry sky, in the raging hurricane, the young lady's arm holding the glower flame fan raised slightly, forming a strong wind to block in front of her. And the surrounding hurricane kept crashing against the young lady, as if to swallow her up completely. Qiao Yinyan's pupils suddenly contracted. Pei Xing also stood up, one hand on Qiao Yinyan's shoulder, looking up at the scene in the sky. Ah, Luo is in danger. What is that place? Qiao Yinyan's eyes darkened as he looked at Gue Wu. Gue Wu also looked at the scene in the sky, a place you can't go. Qiao Yinyan frowned. What do you mean? Gue Wu did not reply. What is that place? I'm going to help him. Qiao Yinyan's brows furrowed even more tightly, and his face turned ashen. Just as Qiao Yinyan was walking towards Gue Wu and was about to ask for the result, then, another exclamation came from the crowd. Quick, look. That's the person who just killed the Blood Fong monster. The scene in the vast starry sky was changing. From Yi Qing Luo's body, it shifted to the side, to the disheveled man who was emitting black qi, attacking crazily. That face was clearly imprinted in everyone's eyes. Wasn't it, the Dark Lord? The one who fought with the Overlord in the space of consciousness. In other words, what they were seeing now was the image of the Overlord's consciousness space. Everyone looked at each other. They were both shocked and surprised. How could the image of the Overlord's consciousness space appear here? Didn't Imperial Madam and the Red Clear Pavilion's Pavilion Master go to investigate the array core? Why would Imperial Madam enter the Overlord's consciousness space, and even fight with the Dark Lord? Where was the Overlord? Chapter 3796. What on earth was going on? Everyone's heart was filled with doubts. Space of consciousness. Xiao Yinyan's face suddenly turned pale as he muttered these words. Gue Wu was right. He indeed couldn't enter the space of consciousness. Other than the two who were already in the space of consciousness, there was absolutely no way for outsiders to enter the space of consciousness. Then, how did Luo enter? Could it be the Overlord? Not the Overlord. As if he could read Xiao Yinyan's thoughts, Zhou Mo's thin lips curled as he spoke lazily. The Overlord's feelings for little Qing Luo, an outsider like you will never understand. The Overlord's ability is not something that little Qing Luo can match up to. Unless the Overlord's brain is clamped by the door, then he will not let little Qing Luo fall into danger. He shrugged and continued, the Overlord is so wise and powerful, it is absolutely impossible for him to have his brain clamped by the door, so this absolutely cannot be the Overlord. Xiao Yinyan. Pei Xing. Was he praising the Overlord or belittling the Overlord? Why did it sound so strange? If it's not the Overlord, then how could Luo enter the space of consciousness? That Yuzun, we haven't even fought, and I can clearly feel that he is absolutely not someone from our land domain. Pei Xing's eyes revealed a worried look as he looked at Zhou Mo anxiously. Luo and Overlord are going against each other. Isn't she in danger? Zhou Mo's charming peach blossom eyes slightly narrowed. Yes, very dangerous. Are we just going to sit here and watch? Pei Xing looked at his calm look and couldn't wait to rush over, grab his shoulder and shake violently. Zhou Mo spread out his hands. The Overlord's space of consciousness is not something that anyone can enter. At least among all of you here, no one has that ability. Pei Xing's face turned slightly pale as his face collapsed. You are also Luo's friend, why, can't you think of a way? Xiao Yinyan suddenly raised his head as his deep as the sea eyes looked at Zhou Mo without blinking. In the depths of his eyes, there seemed to be other lights flowing. Zhou Mo's long and narrow brows raised frivolously as his eyelids curled into an evil arc. His thin lips curled slightly as he sneered, in terms of worry, our worry is absolutely not less than yours. Besides, even if we had the ability to enter the Overlord's consciousness space, I wouldn't let you in. Xiao Yinyan's face darkened as he glared at Zhou Mo ever since Zhou Mo mentioned that he was extremely disgusted with Zhou Mo. It was not easy to erase that person from the deepest part of her heart. Yet, Zhou Mo insisted on mentioning that person. It wasn't easy for him to calm his heart. Thinking of this, Xiao Yinyan's expression became even worse. The coldness in his eyes became even more intense. However, the person who was being baptized by this gaze didn't care at all. Even his expression did not change at all. She lifted her lips and met Xiao Yinyan's eyes with a faint smile. The atmosphere was tense. Kitty Lee broke the silence. He's right. We are very, very good relatives with Big Sister. Big Sister is Kitty's family. We care more about my sister's safety than any of you. She placed her hands on her hips and squeezed between Zhou Mo and Xiao Yinyan. She straightened her body and snorted at Xiao Yinyan. Chapter 3797. We are just worried about Luo. Pei Xing looked at the two people who were at daggers drawn and explained to ease the atmosphere, it's because we know Yuzun's strength that we're worried about Luo. Big Sister is the most powerful person in the world. With Big Sister here, Big Sister can deal with whatever dark honorable or ghost honorable. Kitty Lee opened her big black eyes wide and said with determination. And brother-in-law Overlord is here too. Nothing will happen to my sister. Xiao Yinyan's eyes flickered as he clenched his fists. Pei Xing patted his shoulder and said in a low voice, what they said actually makes sense. Even if we can go to Aal Luo's fiancé's consciousness space, we will only be a burden to Aal Luo. Let's just wait and see. Qiao Yinyan glanced sideways at Pei Xing and pursed his lips into a straight line. He seemed to be unhappy that Pei Xing was speaking up for the person opposite him. Pei Xing rolled her eyes. If you really have other girls in your heart, then don't act like you are deeply in love with Aal Luo. If Aal Luo's fiancé sees your expression and misunderstands, Aal Luo will tear you apart. Qiao Yinyan's face instantly darkened, as if he wanted to strangle Pei Xing to death. Pei Xing shrunk her neck. Why are you glaring at me? I'm just thinking about you. Qiao Yinyan gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice, forget what Zhou Mo said. From now on, don't ever mention it in front of me again. That man. Who? Pei Xing didn't understand, but looking at Qiao Yinyan's expression, he seemed to recall something. You mean, the girl in your heart? Why can't I mention it? Are you afraid that I will fall in love with that girl? Don't worry, I know that I can't bully my brother's wife. Shut up. Qiao Yinyan's brows twitched. Pei Xing still wanted to say something. But at this moment, a group of profounders started to exclaim with surprise. The two of them immediately shifted their gazes to the sky, to the illusory image. Only to see that in the space of consciousness, there was originally a raging gale, like a huge wave crashing against the astral winds which Yi Qing Luo had conjured. It had already changed. The huge wave surged and stirred up a huge wave. It was like a huge mouth that swallowed the girl. That kind of wind and waves was so tyrannical and powerful that no one had ever seen before. It was as if they would be devoured and torn to shreds if they approached it. Such an impact. How could Yi Qing Luo possibly block it? Oh no. Madame D has been swallowed. Why isn't Di Zun here? What was going on? Madame D is in trouble. What should we do? Who is that person? What kind of place was the Palace of Darkness? Why are there so many powerful, strange things, and people? Just like the undead puppet from before. It also looked like the white dragon monster. And the blood fang monster at the back. Now, there was another powerful man who could fight the legendary Di Zun alone. This gloom palace, it was too shocking. Look! The Imperial Madam isn't dead. Suddenly, an ecstatic scream erupted from the crowd. A profound practitioner pointed at the horizon and said in a trembling voice, as expected of the Imperial Madam. She's too scary, too scary. Everyone widened their eyes and looked over. That vast starry sky was shrouded by the hurricane. The raging waves caused the entire space to distort. Chapter 3798. This was not the most shocking thing. What made the cultivators exclaim in shock was. It was under the surging waves. A dazzling red light spread out bit by bit. The red light was dazzling. Contending against the waves of air. Following that, a red figure flew out amidst the raging airwaves. The cultivators could even hear the sound of the air being torn apart in the vast starry sky due to the huge energy. That red figure. Wasn't it Yi Qing Luo? The young lady opened her arms and flew up. The hand that held the glowing flame fan suddenly unfurled it. The red profound light flowed on the entire glower flame fan. Immediately, it was like a hot knife through butter, tangling with the incoming waves of air. The young lady's beautiful face was emotionless. A pair of charming eyes, calm and indifferent, as if facing all these, was just a trivial matter. All the profound practitioners felt as if their hearts had been touched by something. They didn't know why. The moment when the young lady flew up from the surging profound energy which seemed to be able to destroy the heaven and earth and tear everything apart. In everyone's heart, it had already been imprinted. The young lady's calm, as if she could control everything in the world. This was perhaps because right from the start, they had treated the young lady as the only hope to leave this auction. Everyone looked at the young lady's fluttering skirt. Their hearts also followed the young lady's, nervously beating wildly. The red light surged wantonly. It formed a confrontation of two forces with that raging wind. A violent boom sound was heard. The entire space shook for a moment. The vast starry sky behind them actually began to shatter piece by piece. The space can't bear the load of these two forces, it's starting to crack. The cultivators exclaimed. Qiao Yinyan took a few steps forward, his pupils constricted. All the muscles in his body were tightened into a ball. As if he wanted to rush into the space of consciousness at any time. Gue Wu's tone was still very indifferent. Don't worry, the Overlord space of consciousness is not that fragile. Since the Overlord has no intention to make a move, this also means student Yiqing Luo's life is not in danger. Qiao Yinyan clenched his teeth, suppressing the restlessness in his heart. His gaze was fixed on the sky. After the vast starry sky split open. Instead, there was only darkness. The thick, black, evil aura was not obvious in the darkness. On the contrary, the red glow released by the young girl was like a dancing flame, revealing a bewitching and captivating beauty. In the space of consciousness, Yiqing Luo's eyes were sunken and cold as her gaze seemed to be sealed in ice. Through the layers of surging profound waves, she looked at Yuzun, whose face was distorted and sinister. She curled her lips into a faint, cold smile. Her 5 fingers moved slightly, about to form the thunder crash incantation. Suddenly, Old Man Tsang's alarmed voice entered her ears. Girl, don't use the thunderclap arts and the secret teleportation technique for now. Yiqing Luo's movements paused. Old Man Tsang's voice was somewhat sullen. This old man feels that someone is spying on us. No, it's spying on the entire battlefield. When Yiqing Luo heard that, the hand which had already stretched out slowly retracted. The burning aura around his body also retracted a little. What do you mean? She asked. Old Man Tsang sighed softly. This old man can't explain it clearly, but I have this feeling. A very strong feeling of being spied on. Under the situation where we don't know who the other party is, if you use the thunderclap arts or the secret teleportation technique, your secret will most likely be exposed. Yiqing Luo's slender brows instantly creased into a bowl. Chapter 3799. Why did it feel as though he was intentionally targeting her? Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as she raised her eyes towards Yuzun's direction. Yuzun saw her retract her move and her anger had also subsided. His face revealed a sinister cold smile. TSK TSK TSK, Yiqing Luo. Why did you stop? Are you afraid? Seeing Yuzun's delighted look. Linking back to what Old Man Tsang said, looked like the feeling of being spied on by Old Man Tsang was real. Her eyes were filled with a chilly glint as she looked at Yuzun and asked word by word, "You're the one behind this?" Yuzun laughed sinisterly, "Ha ha ha. I didn't expect you to discover it." His tone was filled with disappointment and mixed with complacency. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly. The person hiding in the dark, is he the real mastermind of Palace of Darkness? The person who could spy on Dmo Xian's consciousness space, other than that mysterious and powerful mastermind of Palace of Darkness, Yiqing Luo couldn't think of anyone else. Moreover, other than the mastermind of Palace of Darkness, no one would do such a sneaky rat's action. Yuzun's expression was twisted as he sneered, "To deal with you, there's no need for esteemed father to take action personally." Esteemed father. Yiqing Luo raised her brows in astonishment. "You're the mastermind of Palace of Darkness." Son. No wonder Yuji addressed him as esteemed young master. Yuzun revealed a complacent look. His disheveled look made him put on a high-spirited look. Why, are you afraid? No. Yiqing Luo replied decisively as her pink lips curled into an arc. I just feel that it's very funny. Yuzun's expression sunk. What's funny? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her eyes were filled with ridicule, as she gave a sarcastic smile. To me, the real mastermind behind the scenes of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness has always been considered as my acknowledged opponent. Tisk, I'd not expected that his son is actually a useless trash. As she said that, she shook her head as she pretended to sigh helplessly. I really feel sorry for that esteemed father of yours. You. Yuzun's face contorted in anger as his face was filled with humiliation. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws as a burst of powerful profound energy erupted from his entire body, causing his robe and hair to flutter wildly. Obviously, he was angry out of humiliation. Just as Yiqing Luo congealed her eyes and was about to receive his attack. Suddenly, a weak wave of air swayed in the air. The flames around the Nether Prime immediately dissipated completely. The Nether Prime was stunned on the spot. His face was filled with disbelief, shock, and astonishment. Yiqing Luo frowned when she saw this. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination. It seemed like there was a very familiar feeling in that weak wave of air just now. The air seemed to freeze for a moment. It was as if it was the feeling of hearing something that disturbed the mind. What words? She had only mocked Yuzun a little. Why does the Dark Lord seem like he can't use his strength? In the time it took to breathe. The Nether Prime's horrified aura seemed to be forcefully suppressed. What was going on? The Nether Prime was equally confused and shocked. He clenched his fists so tightly that his veins were bulging. His ferocious face was covered with blue veins. What was going on? Why did his profound energy completely disappear just now? That wave of air which suppressed his attack earlier. It felt extremely familiar. The Nether Prime's eyes flashed as a figure surfaced in his heart. Chapter 3800. Yuzun's heart suddenly trembled fiercely. But following that, he was filled with doubts. Only. Yiqing Luo apparently didn't give him a chance to think deeply. Seeing the flames around Yuzun dissipating, without any intention to battle. She naturally wouldn't let go of this chance. Her lips curled as she leapt up and opened up both her hands. Since you don't intend to attack, then, it's my turn to take control. She raised her slender wrist, and when the glower flame fan opened up, endless profound energy surged out. At the same time, her cold voice reverberated in the sky. My little friends, come out and do some exercise. Following Yiqing Luo's words. A huge green dragon appeared in the sky, surging in the pitch-black space. Its entire body shone with green light, dignified and noble. The dragon's roar shook the entire space. A huge white tiger suspended in mid-air. Its 4 paws were burning with raging flames. A pair of black tiger eyes stared menacingly at Yuzun. That king word on its forehead was shocking. Immediately following that, a huge vermilion bird spread its wings, giving off a sharp and clear cry. Its fiery red wings, overflowing with brilliant colors, dazzling the entire pitch-black space. Under the 4 huge sacred beasts. A black cheetah whose entire body was pitch black, its eyes glinting with a dangerous cold glint, arched its body as its fur stood up, like a sharp blade, extremely sharp. The moment this formation appeared, the entire empty space instantly became bustling with noise and excitement. A powerful and thick pressure enveloped everything in the surroundings. This. For sacred beasts, in addition to a cheetah beast's powerful pressure, was close to a spirit profound cultivator. Yuzun was so shocked that he almost couldn't stand still. He recognized the 4 different battle beasts hovering in mid-air at one glance. They were the ancient 4 great sacred beasts. This lady called Yiqing Luo had actually subdued the 4 great sacred beasts. He was extremely regretful. Regretting that in order to let his Lord Father value him more, he didn't investigate clearly and forcefully accepted this mission. This lady was simply not human. Totally not as harmless as she looked on the surface. It seemed like he was just a newbie who had come from the Nirvana realm to the Earth realm, and even the Sage Profound realm should be considered a beginner. Who would have thought that, time and time again, he would be shocked and overwhelmed with shock. It was as if all the good things in the world had gathered on her. The Dark Lord's fists clenched even tighter. Trash! As the beast roared and the hurricane raged, the wind howled. The Nether Prime seemed to have vaguely heard an enraged bellow by his ears. This voice caused the Nether Lord to suddenly wake up. His eyes widened as he looked around. His heart was filled with excitement and shock. However, he did not have time to search for the owner of the voice. The raging winds and huge waves set off by the 4 sacred beasts were already pressing down on them. 4 holy beasts and a mutated phantom beast with a dragon horn. Each beast had its own unique attack. They were entangled from all directions. The Nether Prime did not have any leeway to retaliate at all. The 5 battle pets were pressing down with an unstoppable momentum. The Nether Prime's heart had sunk into despair. Suddenly, a hurricane stirred up a monstrous black chi as it enveloped his body. The slight wave of chi that was suppressing his entire body's chi suddenly dissipated. Boundless energy gathered in his limbs and bones. The Nether Prime didn't have the time to be surprised. Where did this amusing change come from? You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.